here. Pat Carroll couldn't do it. Fred Kiprop couldn't do it. Both of them got 2 in a row. Important to remember, Margaret Redan got 3 in a row in the mid-80s in the women's race, but in the men's it hasn't been done. Can Kenneth Mungara do it today? The stopwatches, the Garmins are poised, ready for start.
Will it be a day for race records? It will be a day of thrill and excitement out there on the Gold Coast Marathon course. They are poised and ready to go, and they are off in the 2017, the 39th running of the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. Around 6,000 runners taking to the streets all those months and in some cases years of hard, tough training. Today is the day on which they have to put it all to the test. We are seeing pictures, and we haven't spoken about these yet, Benita, but we have the paces. So this is really very much a common feature of all, certainly gold label marathon races. So we've got 3 key paces. The one you're seeing at the front there is Tadashi Isiki from Japan, a very young runner, 23, a very accomplished runner as well. Ran 2:11:45, finishing 11th in Tokyo earlier this year. You'll also see 2 Kenyans featured. Raymond Kimengo, PB of 2:10, and Luca Roach, 2:08. We might wonder why a 2:08 runner is pacing, but there's a bit of money to be made, and for these guys becomes a bit of a semi-profession as well.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, some people come to these big marathons, especially this IAAF Gold Label race, and they expect pacemakers. You want to be paced by someone that is seemingly running quite easy. And so to pace this kind of field, you've got to have really good pacemakers. So, you know, these guys, I don't expect them to finish, but as we know, sometimes they do. You know, it just allows you to relax. And I know in the marathons I've run, I've really enjoyed having pacemakers, and you just kind of sit in the train and on the bus, and you know, I always used to think of it as sitting on a bus and just relaxing for that first, you know, 30k, as Robbie said before. And yeah, these pacemakers, they're doing all the work. They're looking at the paces and the splits that they've got to be on, and you know, we can see that they're not all running together. They're running in a bit of an arrow shape, which is generally what they always do. And the first pacemakers that are right at the front drop out first, and then the others continue through. And you know, you always know what pace is going to be set, and you just sometimes the pacemakers even just grab some water for you and help you out as well at the stops. But it just allows you to relax, and the marathon is all about relaxing for that first 30k till the race is on. And the longer that you can get paced for, and the longer you can sit on that bus and on the train, generally the easier it is. But a marathon's not easy.
So the target time for these paces, a time which is designed to get a race record, is 3:02, 3 minutes 3 per kilometre, which takes us through to around 15:10 to 15:15 per 5 kilometre segment. It's meant to be very precise. Anything can happen after 30 kilometres. In the women's paces, Robbo, we've got a couple of local runners, Brad Croker and Brady Threlfall. They'll be pacing the female runners. They'll be looking to go through at about 3:28 pace, which should take the ladies through about 2:19 through 35 kilometres. So it'll be very interesting to see how they go there. And we're heading off on what is a scenic part of the course. We're heading south. We head south for about 20 kilometres, and then they spin back after that. Now it's just a matter of getting in your rhythm and routine, isn't it?
It is. They'll want to just stay relaxed and just shake it out and get into that, I guess, the rhythm as early as they can, and just roll on, just hang on to that bus, as Benita said. And interesting to see in light of recent attempts at a historic, you know, sub 2 hour marathon, the pacing strategies that were used for that attempt. And I'm interested to see whether pacemakers at other big city marathons will start to employ some of those strategies where paces are in a formation and looking to maintain a bit more of a stronger windbreak for the runners in behind them. It'll be interesting to see if they can get themselves organised in big city marathons like this one here on the Gold Coast. But at the moment, you know, Yuki, who's done so many marathons, as you said, this is his 70th. Well, he's just tucked in there, not having to take too much of the breeze. It will be a bit of a southerly that they'll end up pushing into down here, but it's only pretty light breeze at the moment. But it all certainly helps, doesn't it, if you can just tuck in and just let someone just pull you through, suck you through. Not quite like the Tour de France and getting sucked in behind a bike and getting that huge aerodynamic benefit, but there is a little bit of a benefit. And when you're running at near enough 3-minute Ks, minutes per kilometre, it certainly does help.
It will be very interesting to see how this race unfolds. Yuki Kawauchi is keen for revenge. However, as we've spoken, he is running the London World Championships in about 5 weeks' time. I just get the sense, Benita, listening to Yuki talk, his strategy is to stay with the lead pack to 30 kilometres and just gauge how the race is unfolding there. But I just get the sense, because he does want to produce a good performance, he's even talking about trying to medal, finish in the top 3 at London, that if he has to go too hard, if he's got to expend everything and potentially do some damage for London, as much as he's a competitor, he wants an easy race and an easy win, but a marathons are never easy wins.
No, and you know, it's hard to gauge sometimes what he's thinking and what he's going to do here today, but certainly he was saying he's not going to really have any more competitions after this before London World Champs, and he's a bit nervous about that, so he might want to really have a good go today. And you know, it is hard to say, but seeing that he's wearing that hat, you know, he's ready for that that push to the end, that last 12k. He's ready for the you know, for a bit of sunlight, and I think that you know, he's ready for a big race, and I felt like he was quietly confident of his run today. He doesn't give too much away, but he knows how to win this race, but he also has World Champs coming up. But he is coming off some really good form this year, and I'm really excited to see him race today and see what he's going to do.
So we will bring you live pictures all throughout of the men's marathon and provide you with updates of the women's marathon. As you look at the course there, you can see that how it is heading south from its beginning at the Southport starting line. We head all the way down to Burleigh Heads, which is around 20 kilometres for the turnaround. We then come back and end up back near the start, around 32 kilometres, and we'll be crossing to 2 former champions, Steve Monaghetti and Pat Carroll, who will be giving us an update around that 32 kilometre mark. That's a key point at which we often see a strategic move. There is the only hill, such as we can call it, which is really not much more than a slight incline of about 30 or 40 metres, but coming down the other side of that incline at 32 kilometres is often where we see strategic moves. You're looking at the pacemakers, a couple of key pacemakers here. Tadashi from Japan, and he will be taking them. The strategy is for them to take the lead pack through to 25 kilometres, potentially 30 kilometres, and of course with that licence for them to be able to run on further beyond that. We saw a bit of a strange tactic last year, Benita, with the pacemaker move away from the trailing pack, and that's really not much good if the pacemaker's taking a 50-metre gap and then he stepped off the course. So will be interesting to see how the pacers handle it, but we would expect that they would stay together and right on pace of 3:02, 3:03 kilometre for the men's race.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, the key role for these pacemakers is to shield the wind, just help the field relax as much as they can. So they really need to stay just in front of the field. You know, they've got to make sure that they're just helping everyone and keeping on pace. And anyone that's listening to our webcast as well, try to run a 3:02k, and it's. I mean, I couldn't do it at the moment. I mean, it's tough, and I mean, but they want to look as relaxed as they can. And sometimes it's a marathon. You want to look relaxed if you're running in the pack there, because you want others to feel that you're doing it easy. And you know, it is mind games, and these pacers just need to be relaxed, and they need to keep the field you know, on pace and on that bus for as long as they can. And yeah, so they're looking fine at the moment, but we're fairly early on, but yeah, so it's a good pace they're setting.
We might be able to have a look at the course that they will travel here, and it's a beautiful stretch of the Gold Coast. I guess they're basically running, you can't quite see it, but that street they're on there now is really only one block away from the golden sands and the beaches there of the Gold Coast, and they'll head down to one of the most spectacular parts of the coast, which is at Burleigh Heads, and that's where they'll turn around there. So it's a great trip heading south down to Burleigh, and it's all flat. It probably feels a bit like they're running downhill a little bit at the moment. Hopefully if they're doing it easily and comfortable, as you say, Benita. But yeah, that little bit of a breeze is around us, as we said, just to keep them cool at the moment, but nothing too crazy at the moment. And yeah, it's good to see we're underway, 9 minutes in, and so we're coming up to a few Ks or so in this men's race. And the women's elite field will be just back a little bit at the moment, but as we see Yuki just tucked in there nicely, the pacer giving some indicators, just looking out for one of the wheelchair athletes. That's the 3K mark. You've just gone past there now, Ian.
So, yeah, so we've gone through 3K in about 9:15, so that is pretty much on pace. They wouldn't want to slip back any further. The paces are meant to be very precise within a second or two. Despite the fact you're seeing a little bit of breeze fluttering through those flags, I don't expect that to be any sort of factor at all. We will bring you some wonderful pictures, some wonderful aerials of the Gold Coast. And why wouldn't you want to be here at this time of year? It is perfect. It's probably the sort of conditions which people would think they'd expect to see in summer in many parts of the world. But the Gold Coast this time of year is perfect. Temperatures around 22, 23 degrees in the middle of the day. And we have the elite men's runners going through 3 kilometres, heading south, as Robbo said, down towards Burleigh. We've got the pacers there, Tadishi. The other two that we'll keep an eye out for, the other 2 men pacers. We've got also Raymond Chimengo and Luka Rotich from Kenda. So you'd expect, looking at Rotich and Chimunga there, they would probably, the pacers, share that pacing, that lead around. In fact, we might even see them moving up a little bit now, Benita.
Yeah, I mean, they will share it around, and certainly they're just working together at the moment. They would have had a plan going into the race. Certainly they would have talked to their manager, talked to the race director. Ryan McDonald would know. All the athletes would know exactly what they're going to do. There's no secrets of what the pace is going to be and who's going to share it around. So those guys, yeah, they just want to create the best race they can and the fastest race they can for the athletes. And yeah, it's a professional job now with pacemaking. So yeah, those guys they've got their plan in their mind, and it is hard to pacemake. It's one of those jobs where you kind of it sounds easy because you don't have to run the whole way, but you want to do a good job for everyone in the field and set up a really good race. And they look to be going really well at the moment and be in a good formation. And I suspect that they will change the lead around a little bit soon.
The tall Kenyan there, Benita, Raymond Chimengo there in the blue singlet. Now, interesting story with him. He actually got paced by his countryman, fellow Kenyan Jonah Chesum at the 2016 Brighton Marathon. So roles are being reversed here today on the Gold Coast, and hopefully 2 of them can team up once again and get a good result. But yeah, it's almost it'd be interesting for these top guys to have a little go at the pacing every now and then, get a feel for what that's like. And the pressure is on, I guess. You've got the weight of expectation, especially at some of these, over in Berlin, the big city marathons where they're looking at world records and stuff. And as you say, they get rewarded quite handsomely for it, but you can't muck around. And hopefully, it's one thing to have paces. We see it on the track a little bit too, Ian, in the shorter distance races, but it's one thing to have pacemakers, but you've got to make sure that people are willing to, as I said before, pull up the socks and stick to that pace and have a good crack at it. And it looks like they're warming into it pretty nicely here today, and a good little pack. What have we got? Most of 20 runners as we look down there at the moment in that lead pack, including the pacers.
We'll get our first indication of whether they are on record pace just in the next couple of minutes, and be interesting to see if they go through that first split of 15-10, 15-15. So we are still heading south on the course as we do for the first 20 kilometres. A few other runners we haven't spoken about. A runner from Estonia, Roman Fosti. Be interesting to see how he goes. Douglas Chebi from Kenya. He's a sub-2:10 runner as well. Aberor Tegegni from Ethiopia and Fiara Dadi from Ethiopia. So we've got 10 runners under 2 hours 10 who have run under 2 hours 10, which is a bit of a benchmark, even though the world record now is around 2:03. You're looking at Yuki Kawauchi, who is running with a cap. It's not a hot day out there, a little bit unusually for Kawauchi, but he's obviously just looking to keep the sun off his face. And a lead pack there of about 15 runners, and we're likely to see guys stick together for at least 15-20 kilometres. They usually don't split, although if the pace gets forced early on, it will be interesting to see who drops off first. Mungara just tucked back there, trying to be very surreptitious. He's not seeking to do anything at all. He just wants to sit back, cruise through. Last year, he didn't make his move until after Kawauchi tried to break things apart at that 32-kilometre mark.
Yeah, that's right. That's about the first time I've seen him, Ian, on the coverage. So he's tucked right at the back of the bus at the moment, just tucked away in the corner, and he'll be just looking to just let these kilometres roll through and let the boys up the front do the majority of the work at the moment. He's got a nice little view of the beach over there as the sun's coming up, and yeah, it really is a stunning place to come and run here on the Gold Coast.
And somebody who's here to enjoy the Gold Coast from Japan. Joining in this commentary box, Brett Lana from Japan Running News. Brett, welcome again. You've been here for the last few years. Good to have you back, and I guess you offer us quite a few special insights of the elite runners, but particularly the Japanese and the sort of rivalries we're going to have between Kawauchi and Hashimoto. Those guys really are after it.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to be back. I'm always glad to be on the Gold Coast, and especially here at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. This is a big race for Kawauchi, heading into the World Championships. I heard you just before I came on talking about the hat. I think this is even though it's a cool day, given the amount of sunshine, you can consider this practice for the World Championships. The hat is part of his practice. He wants to, control as many variables as possible, and when it is sunny, he does wear the hat. So that'll be geared towards that. You mentioned Hashimoto, one of the other Japanese men. That's what's really interesting about him. He did his second marathon last year in December at the Hofu Yomiuri Marathon in Japan, which is one of Kawauchi's regular events that he does every year. And Hashimoto actually beat Kawauchi to win it in 2:11:20, which in the second marathon, 2:11:20 is not quite as fast a time as a lot of the sub 2:10 men you were talking about here in the field have. But in a second marathon, that's quite solid, and for a win over Kawauchi, it's a commendable performance.
And we know Kawauchi is a competitor. He wins many races, but he doesn't like it when he loses. Kawauchi is keen to get revenge over Hashimoto here. There's a little bit of a burning there for Yuki. He is such a true competitor.
Yeah. It's in that case, he regretted losing to Hashimoto. Partly because it was 2 weeks after Fukuoka. He ran a sensational race in Fukuoka and then still had some lingering fatigue and feels like, Hashimoto got the better of me, so I need to get some payback on him. So I think Hashimoto would be one of the people Kawauchi would be looking to beat here today.
Just to tap into your insight of Kawauchi, you were speaking to me in the last couple of days of the miracle in Fukuoka, where Yuki Kawauchi, by all convention and physiology, shouldn't have been able to run, let alone run sub 2:10. Just talk us through that.
Yeah, he a month before Fukuoka was the beginning of December last year, and a month before that he had run the Porto Marathon in Portugal, and shortly after that went back into full training towards Fukuoka and injured one of his calves and had a fairly serious calf injury that, the Ageo City Half Marathon that he runs every year, he typically runs 62 to 63 in mid-November. He actually ran over an hour and a half there because of his calf injury. And then thought about not running Fukuoka as a result of the calf injury. A lot of people were pressuring him not to run, and he did it anyways. But 2 days before the race, he sprained his other ankle, and it was quite a serious sprain. So he went into the race with one sprained ankle, one calf injury, and everybody around him telling him not to do it, and him
including yourself,
including me. Yeah. And he only listened to one person in that situation, himself, and went out and somehow pulled off a sub 2:10 for third place to make the London World Championships team. And the media hailed it as like the miracle in Fukuoka, they were calling it. And Kawauchi himself this spring wrote a guest piece for one of the Japanese media outlets and talked about the miracle in Fukuoka. He feels that it was a miracle as well.
He defies so much logic and so much convention, and don't underestimate, viewers, the legend of Yuki Kawauchi. We sort of take it for granted. He comes here every year for the last 6 years. He's had a podium finish twice, 2013 winner. The legend of Yuki Kawauchi continues to grow, and we shouldn't underestimate what a world-class athlete he is. Other marathons around the world clamour to get him to run their events, Brett. What is it about this citizen runner that, for those who don't know what it is so special about Yuki Kawauchi, that sets him apart from other Japanese runners and from other runners in the world?
Right. In terms of what sets him apart from other Japanese runners, if you're looking at this lead pack, there are quite a few Japanese men in it at this stage, and pretty much with the exception of Kawauchi, they all belong to semi-professional running teams. Running in Japan, distance running in Japan is primarily a team sport, and they have large groups of runners that are sponsored by different corporations. You can see different company logos on their singlets, and it's a very controlled environment. It's a good system. It definitely has advantages and produces quality in one respect, and it has its drawbacks in other ways. And what's unique about Kawauchi relative to those runners is he has always been independent. Ever since high school, he went to a university that was not a strong running university by choice. Since he's graduated, he's been self-coached. He has no sponsors. He works a full-time job. And just completely different way of thinking from all the other Japanese athletes. And then also regarding the part about how he compares to world-class runners around the rest of the world, he does work a full-time job, which happens in some places, while doing all this training to compete at the 208, 209, 210 level in the marathon. But what really sets him apart is of course, the frequency of racing. He races almost every week, and in particular, the really long races, marathons, and even 50 kilometers. He's doing vast quantities. I think this year he'll be doing 11. I believe he has 11 marathons on his calendar this year, plus a 50K race that he did 2 weeks ago. That's unthinkable by most people's standards, but he's been doing it year in, year out, and that's part of what makes him who he is.
Brett, would it be fair to say when the elite men line up at the World Championships for the marathon in 5 weeks' time, there won't be many that have done a marathon 5 weeks out from London? Yuki be probably one of maybe the only person to have done that.
At the front end of the field, I think it's safe to say he's probably the only one. There may be a few people, still trying to get in the qualifier at the last moment, but at the front end of the field, I think that's a safe bet.
Yeah. So the runners are about to come through 7K, but we can give you the 5K split, even 6K, both of those points, 15-15, absolutely bang on race record pace of 3:03 a kilometre. And I guess that shows the precision of the pace runners. They're doing their job. So we've got a lead pack. There's nothing between them. The couple of paces of Ashiki, Chimengo, and of course Rotic, we should see him move up to start to do his share of work fairly soon. And of course all the top elites there, Kawauchi, Mungara, Chesham, Hidru, Kipsat, Fiora Daddy, Douglas Chebai. So early days, Brett, but I guess we like to see race record pace. The interesting thing will be just when those paces drop off and just to see how and who tries to take it and at what point, whether it's 10 kilometres from home or it's a sit-and-kick race.
Yeah, it's especially here at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. It's been a little bit unpredictable the last few years. The movement in the race, the point where it's switching from a controlled pace set by the pacemakers to the runners themselves dictating the pace has varied. I believe it was 3 years ago that the pacemaker put in a Kenyan pacemaker put in a massive surge somewhere around 20 kilometers, and that really broke the race up much earlier. Other times it's gone past 30 kilometers. So we'll see how that goes.
And we saw Kenneth Mungara in his race record win in 2015. He ran down his Kenyan countrymen Silas Limo and Ruto. He caught them at the 39-kilometre mark. He was this 40-year-old from Kenya, this 40-year-old barber who we really had heard not much about. We didn't know what potential he had. He also seemed to defy running logic and running convention to win a major international race at that sort of age. But he came through to run a race record of 2:08.42, which was only a minute outside his PB, which had been set 4 years earlier than that. So just anything can happen here at the Gold Coast, and that, I guess, really is the charm of it and the allure, the mystique of the marathon, that we will see how it unfolds, but we don't know when it will unfold.
Absolutely.
Suzuki, the other Japanese runner, Takuya Suzuki, he's got a PB of 2:12 set earlier this year. Would you expect the likes of him or Takahashi to be any sort of threat out here, Brett?
I wouldn't expect them to be among the favourites. At the 2:12 level, it would take a little bit of a breakthrough performance for them here to factor into the front end of the race. We could certainly see them run PBs. Whether that would be enough to put them on the podium, that would remain to be seen. Before the race, Kenneth Mungara was talking about this being a 2:08 day. It's not really looking like that so far. It's still very early going, but if it ends up being a 2:08 to 2:09 race, the 2:12 Japanese men would need a pretty big breakthrough to get up there. Two people who might be a little bit more dark horse contenders among the Japanese would be Chiharu Takara, who's in green right behind Kawauchi, and he has run on the Gold Coast twice before. I believe last year he was fourth in 2:10.43, and he has the kind of dubious distinction of being Japan's all-time best marathoner to never break 2:10. I believe he's run under 2:11 4 times in his career, and he's come very close, but has never quite done it.
2:10.03 in Fukuoka in 2014, which is still a terrific run, but really anything that's not under 2:10 just doesn't cut it. We would have hundreds and hundreds of runners around the world these days, Robbo, who really, 2:10 used to be a decent benchmark. We boast of the fact that we've got 5 runners in Australia, 5 men who have broken sub 2:10. But as with these Kenyans, particularly Chesum and Kipsat, they're from a small village called Iten, which is in the Rift Valley, the most famous part of Kenya. There's a population of about 6,000 people there. Jonah was telling me something like 5,000 are runners, and there's about 1,000 people who've run sub 2:9 there.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and you know, it's going to be great to see what they can do today. Interesting, you mentioned just missing out on sub 2:10. We've got our own Brad Camp, who's number 7 all time in Australia. His PB just outside that 2:10. I think it's 2:10.11, and so not able to join that club, but he's having a run today. He's a Gold Coast local. But because I believe we've got some half marathon winners to head down to. Looks like Rabs down there, so let's see what Rabs can present for us here. Over to you, Rabs.
We are with Hiroki Yamagishi, the winner of the ASICS Half Marathon for Men. Congratulations, first of all, on the run today. How did you enjoy the course?
景色がとても綺麗で、走りやすいコースでした。
So course is so beautiful and so very relaxed to run. So I'm so happy.
You won by a fair margin today. Was it difficult being out in front on your own for such a long time?
もう独走だったけど、どれぐらい差ありましたか
10キロぐらいから、独走になって、そこから、15キロからはすごいきつかったんですけど、後ろが離れているのが分かったので、そのまま押し切ることができました。
So after 10K, so I'm alone, and then so I tried to keep the pace. After 15K, so it was a bit difficult to maintain the pace, but I'm also happy. Yeah.
What is the future? Are you going to continue with a half marathon distance, or can you step up to the marathon distance?
今後はマラソンも挑戦しますか
8月に北海道マラソンに挑戦する予定です。
So I'll run next marathon in August in Japan, Hokkaido.
Well, we wish you all the very best. Congratulations on your win here on the Gold Coast today.
Thank you.
All right, so our winner, Hiroshi Yamagishi, a very, very good time here today. To Sarah Hall, the winner of our ladies' ASICS Half Marathon. We're going to try and catch up with her very shortly.
Thanks very much, Mike. Hiroki Yamagishi, the winner of the men's ASIC half marathon. Brett, that's a good time, but gee, it's a super competitive elite field in Japan, isn't it? Where you have something like 100 runners who run under 63 minutes in Japan. There's such incredible depth there in the half.
The half marathon is really the sweet spot in Japanese training. People think of Japan as a marathon nation, but there's a massive race on January 2nd and 3rd that the university guys focus on called the Hakone Ekiden, which is a 10-man road relay featuring 20 university teams that are basically running a half marathon distance each. And that's really where a lot of the training is focused. And when they carry on to the pros, that kind of distance remains the main focus. Some subpopulation of the people who go on to the pro leagues will go on and run marathons, and those people are quite good, but the half marathon is definitely the area where there's the greatest depth and quality.
For those people unfamiliar with the Ekiden relays, it is really almost like the Melbourne Cup in Australia. I mean, the nation almost stops to watch it. It is live on television. It runs throughout the day. It is a real focus. I haven't been there to experience, but I know you've told me it just sounds absolutely extraordinary. 1 million people or more on the streets.
If you've never been there for it, it's really hard to imagine, but it's 15 hours of broadcast over the course of 2 days, live broadcast of university men's road relay running, and it gets over 30% TV viewership rating. So you're talking 30-40 million people watching 15 hours nonstop of distance running over the course of 2 days, millions more turning out on the course. It's really a cultural institution.
And this speaks to the passion that the Japanese have for running. And we will see if that passion converts out here in the ASICs in the marathon. We've got something like 7 or 8 men in the lead group there, perhaps even stretching out to about 10 or 11. In the women's race, we've got some splits there. We don't have live pictures, but they're on race record pace there. Leah Kiprono, Mercy Cabaras, Letta Brand, Gebra Salesi, Bekele, all 17:11 Robbo through 5K, so that's on that 3:28 pace.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're the 5 that are out in front. They've got a 20-second gap then back to 2015 winners Risa Takenaka and Elizabeth Chirono, the Dutch Kenyan, 2 of them running together. And then we go back to the Aussie, Virginia Maloney, another 15 seconds back, running with the Kiwi, Mary Davies, and then Celia Sullivan, who's my dark horse today in the women's race. She's another 30 seconds back. I can't go through 5Ks in 18:18. So it's they've separated already in that women's race. It's tricky to follow a little bit in these mixed races, so they'll be running with the men around them, as opposed to some other international events where they have a set women's start time when they separate. But here we've got men that are pacing the women, and hopefully they're on 2:25 pace at the moment. So we'll take that if they can hang on to that.
That is quite extraordinary. There'd be a massive race record, and this was the buzz, a bit of the talk before the race, Brett. The fact that the Ethiopians and the Kenyans, even though the race was being set up for around 2:26, 2:27 with some paces, but the Ethiopian women were saying to the race organisers, well, thanks very much, but we think we're going to go out a bit harder, which might well leave the likes of Takenaka, already sort of trailing. So the challenge and the interest will be to see if the Ethiopians and Kenyans have gone too hard, if they come back, because I would imagine the likes of Takenaka would struggle to make up that sort of distance.
Yeah, based on that opening split, I think Takenaka is going out according to race plan. She's running 3:30 per kilometre, and that would put her on a mid-2:27 marathon, which would be a PB. She said she came here to run her PB, and that was her main focus. The Africans are going out, as you said, like course record pace, a little bit faster, and you have seen that here on the Gold Coast quite a few times in the past, where African groups have gone out faster and not been able to hold it together. So Japanese women have won the last 5 years straight, I believe 7 of the last 10 years, and the number of those that were front-running races was quite small. I think many of the Africans did tend to come back. So we'll see how that goes. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's never been a Kenyan woman winner here on the Gold Coast, which is probably, I would have to check the stats, but I think that's unique among the gold label marathons in the world to never have had a Kenyan winner in the women's race. So that's one thing we may be looking forward to today. And I believe there's only been one Ethiopian. The last non-Japanese winner was Ethiopian as well. So,
Gov't Tom Tasima. So it is, I guess, a bit of an anomaly in world marathon racing in that regard, but maybe speaks to the proximity of Japan to the Gold Coast, the long-time love affair that Japan has had with the Gold Coast Airport Marathon, dating way back to the 80s and 90s. The strength and the numbers of just everyday runners, but certainly at the elite end. And I guess it's something for them. It's an exotic destination, given that the Japanese have a limited number of annual holidays. They sort of make it probably a 4 or 5 day visit, so they can make it a mini break. And we have some, the numbers of Japanese runners are still fairly strong, something in the 500 or 600. It obviously is a very popular destination for them.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. July in Japan is the summer. It's quite hot and humid, and there are very few races, and so the Gold Coast Airport Marathon has had a long reputation as like the go-to race for summer in Japan.
Robbie, you've got a 10k split there.
Yeah,
still on record race.
We are. We're bang on, and they're just keeping that bus at a nice even pace here. The Ashiki and Chimanga on the front there, so they've got them locked in, and Yuki just up the front of the bus nicely. But I count 18 in this front group. There's a couple dropping off the back, so they might be dwindling down a bit. But they're through. They were through 10k's in 30:29, holding that 3:03 pace. As we mentioned before, if they can hang on to that, they're right on track to equal that course record, 2:08.42. They all look pretty comfortable at the moment. It's just a Sunday morning long run along the beach here on the Gold Coast. So they're making their way south down towards Burleigh still at the moment. All the big hitters are still tucked in there. Interesting, Yuki, as you said, sort of at the front of the pack, and Mungara, you have to sort of strain your eyes a bit to see Kenneth. He's towards the back at the moment, letting a lot of runners in front of him do the work, hopefully a little bit for him. But great to see that they're having a good crack at the start.
So the runners heading through the narrowest part of the course, around the 11-kilometre mark, which they would have just passed a very famous part of the Gold Coast course, Hedges Avenue, Millionaires Row, as they call it. We feature this every year. Certainly
just ran past your place, didn't they, Ian?
Yeah. My weekend shack is there. It is some multi-million-dollar real estate, and I guess the owners of those properties have earned to have a prime time seat of the elite runners as they go past. The interesting feature you're just seeing in the background there, the 20-kilometre mark, which is the athletes will head south to Burleigh, they'll track back around, and it will be interesting to see. It's always terrific for the athletes, Brett, to see the elite runners come back through as the middle packers are running south. So they meet, they have this point side by side, and there's a lot of cheering and atmosphere and connectivity between the elite runners and the everyday runners.
It's great for both sides. You know, it's a real treat for the average amateur runners in the field to get to see the elites that close up, you know, to cheer them, and it definitely gives the elite runners a boost to get that kind of energy.
And there's not many sports, Ian and Brett, where that can happen, is there? You know, you're there,
Absolutely.
you start on the same start line as these top-notch runners. You pass them. They've all got the same timing chip. They've all got to complete the same journey, and you're there shoulder to shoulder with these men and women at the start. So it really is a beautiful thing about our sport. And I've run the marathon once here at the Gold Coast, and that moment when you do have the lead pack pass you, it happens in the split second, but it's an amazing force that you feel when you see 15 men running through a 3-minute pace like this. You can just feel that energy in the air, and it's hopefully some of the other middle of the pack runners, they'll experience that as they're heading back.
Something wonderful I think the Gold Coast Airport Marathon organisers have done over the last few years is to bring back the winners. In years gone by, particularly through the 90s and 2000s, we would have had African runners and Japanese runners. There weren't too many return runners in that regard. We'd see a name, it would appear for a year, they would win it, and then they'd disappear. But the fact that Kawauchi, who, make no mistake, is an absolute world-class athlete, Kenneth Mungara, a world record holder, I guess gives a bit of identity, a bit of familiarity at that elite end of the field, doesn't it, Brett? The fact that these are now household names for the Gold Coast, but these are world-class runners.
Yeah, and in the case of those two gentlemen in particular, not only are they world-class runners, but they are both really, really good people, very funny, very interesting, and they happy to talk to people. If you see them out, walking around and such, they're very approachable and have interesting stories to tell, for sure.
Yeah, despite the translation issues, the humour shines through between Kawauchi and Mungara. I guess the other Japanese runners are probably suffer a little bit by comparison and profile to Yuki, but we will certainly keep a close eye on them. But Kawauchi is a very familiar figure here. I've got to spend a fair bit of time with him. We always catch up. I keep promising him I'm going to find him an Australian wife. Yuki keeps sort of ducking and weaving, running at 3-kilometre pace away from me because he's very focused on his running. But here you're seeing just some magnificent pictures of the Gold Coast. I mean, if you're sitting home in Japan, in Tokyo, you'd imagine, Brett, for a Japanese viewing audience, seeing this sort of landscape, this sort of aerial, so it'd make you want to jump on the next plane to the Gold Coast.
Oh, it's sensational, yeah. It's an easy trip. Why would you not want to come here? Absolutely.
So we're heading south on the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. So we've got some 10K splits for the women there, and we've still got that lead pack of 5 Africans, Gebra Selesi, Bekele, Kiprono, Messere Tolwak, and Mercy Kabaris, 34-35 through 10K. So that's sub 3:30 pace for the women, and that is putting them on 2:25, around 2:26 pace, Robbo. So certainly race record there.
Yeah, slowing a little bit on that 5K split there for those lead 5 women, and it is unfortunately we're not getting the pictures for the women's race at the moment, so you'll have to just trust us on this one. But the Risa Takenaka, she's got not far off the pace, 25 seconds back from that lead group with Elizabeth Chirona. So if the two of them can work together, they might be able to latch back on. And lead Aussie at the moment, Virginia Maloney through 10K 35:12, and then the Kiwi Mary Davies 35:12. Interesting to hear from Mary Davies at the Elite Media Conference the other day. This race is serving as the New Zealand marathon trials for the Commonwealth Games next year, and they have a mean task to qualify in terms of the standards set, I think it's 2:28, it's the A standard. But if she can get a win here, and this serves as the Oceania Championships and run a B standard, which I think is 2:32, then she pretty much secures her place. So that's kind of the little subplot for the Kiwi Mary Davies in there. And at the moment, she's on track for 2:28.35, which she's run about that. I think that's about her PB. So if she can produce the goods there, then she'll do well, and hopefully she can latch onto some runners around her. But yeah, it's great to see. Exciting times in the women's race, but here we are with the men's, and they're just ticking along pretty nicely. Yuki, a little bit more exposed, I've got to say, Brett. Just, he's got the hat on. Maybe he's just making it a little bit harder for himself to get used to a race where there's not going to be any paces in London at the World Champs in 5 weeks.
But you're not surprised, Brett, to see a pack of this size. A couple of the Japanese, but the African runners, Eritrea and from Ethiopia, will dominate in this pack. And we've got about 14, 15 runners. This is what we expected to see, a pack of this size.
Oh, at this stage, for sure. Anybody who would believe on any level that they have a chance of being up there late in the race will of course be here at this point.
You wouldn't want to be falling off at this early stage of the race as we work our way, coming through probably 14 kilometres fairly shortly. We haven't spoken much about, gents, the Commonwealth Games, which of course will be here on the Gold Coast in about 9 months' time. Today's event, I guess, from a few perspectives, a bit of a dry run for the Commonwealth Games, which the Gold Coast will be hosting in April next year. Transport, logistics, security, those sort of things. Over 40,000 visitors to the Gold Coast this weekend. That number will be multiplied by that, 500, 1,000%. We're broadcasting here from the Commonwealth Games pool, sitting above the Commonwealth Games pool, and staying, of course, at the Star Gold Coast, which has had an $850 million transformation ahead of the Commonwealth Games. So it's great to see the best parts of the Gold Coast really sort of turning it on, Brett, for this global audience today, but in preparation for what will be a terrific event in April next year.
Oh, it's going to be a fantastic games. I fully believe. I'm a Canadian citizen, so I'll be happy to see our team here as well, and couldn't ask for better facilities from what I've seen so far.
So almost all of the Games facilities are finished. It will be a different marathon course for the Commonwealth Games. It will start and finish at the Olympic Stadium, but of course it will feature some of the very beautiful and scenic parts of the course. These guys are looking pretty good through here, nice and relaxed. We're not seeing any moves. We wouldn't expect to see any moves. I guess really only once we sort of get to the second half of the race. Be interesting to see what that half marathon split is, but the race doesn't really begin until 25, 30 kilometres.
I think one thing that's interesting, just that shot we're seeing right now, right behind Kawauchi is Takuya Noguchi, who we haven't really talked too much about. He's actually a newlywed, and his bride is none other than our current, or the 2015 winner, Risa Takenaka, who's currently running 6th in the race. They're both here running the same race, and he was fairly cagey before the race, but I talked to Takenaka a bit, and she said he's actually in excellent shape. He's run 2 half marathon PBs and a marathon PB so far this year, and she thinks he's here basically to beat Yuki. He's here to run a really good time and to try to finish ahead of Kawauchi. So he's only run a 2:11 marathon, but if you look at the progression he's having so far this season, I think he's somebody we may be seeing last quite long into the race.
And I guess that's a fascinating subplot amongst the Japanese runners, isn't it? Because Kawauchi is so high profile, he's not the best or the fastest runner in Japan, but because he's outspoken, because of his profile, and I guess the public affection for him, he does run with a target on his back, and any Japanese athlete would love to go home to Japan boasting of having got Kawauchi's scalp here on the Gold Coast.
Yeah, and in the big picture, I think that's a really good thing, and I think he's aware of that situation, his role as a catalyst, sort of a transformative agent in that situation. That if what he's doing is going to motivate other people to up their game, then everybody wins, doesn't it?
Yeah, and of course, a fascinating 3 years ahead to the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Tokyo bidding for that, winning. We saw great euphoria when they won the games, and that, I guess, has created a real focus, a real laser focus in running, and particularly Olympic sports in Japan. But the marathon running is always high profile in Japan, but never more so than that 4-year period when you come into Olympic Games, a home Olympic Games.
Yeah, when they got the bid, there was just a huge explosion in quality in distance running in particular. All of the current college stars were looking at the calendar and saying, wait, when Tokyo Olympics comes here in 2020, we're going to be at our peak as marathon. So I'm going to be on that team. And there's been a huge explosion of quality. Personally, I think the other interesting development regarding 2020 is the rise of Japanese men's sprinting. I think things are coming up very, very quickly. They had the 4x100 silver medal last year, and at that point, only 2 members of the team had broken. No Japanese man has broken 10 seconds yet, but at that point, only 2 members of that team had broken 10.1, and one of the alternates. And now, in the last 3 weeks, 4 more Japanese men have done it. The other 2 members of the team, and then 2 younger guys, an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old. And so you actually have younger guys than all of these 22, 23-year-olds who won the silver medal in Rio coming up. So I think I can see a scenario, and if it happens, it would be incredible, where at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics, we may not see a marathon medal, but we could see a 4x100 gold medal. And that transformation of Japan from a marathon medal nation to a sprinting gold medal nation on home soil would be really the mark of the change of an era. Yes. It's a very exciting possibility.
Traditionally, we only think of Japan in terms of distance running, but and I guess that's a combination of genetics, generally smaller of build, slighter of build, and having that long tradition going back to Toshihiko Seiko back in the Seiko back in the 1980s, who was a great rival and colleague of our own Robert Di Castella. So we're seeing Ashiki, who was doing all of the front running here. I would have thought perhaps a couple of the other Kenyan pacemakers, but perhaps that's the strategy there, that Ashiki will take it through 15 kilometres, and we will. If we haven't passed 15 kilometres, we should see that marker very shortly if we are to be on that 3:02, 3:03 pace, as we'll see that coming past any old tick of the clock now. That just tells us that they're on race record pace, which we really will expect for probably the first 15, 20 kilometres. I would even expect by 25, 30 kilometres, but that's when the true test will be told. There we are, through 15k. So just a tick off 3:03 pace, but that can be easily picked up. The pacers doing their job. Kawauchi sitting right in there, sitting ahead of Mungara. Any sort of mental game being played there at all? He would rather sort of be further and closer to the pacer's breadth than Mungara is just happy to sit right back.
Yeah, I think we saw that last year as well. Kawauchi was running right up behind the pacers, trying to kind of dictate what sort of race it was going to be, whereas Kenneth really hung back and just bided his time until it was the right time to make his move. So it's not a huge surprise to see the same kind of race again. Hopefully, Kawauchi has learned from whatever mistakes he made last year. Although it would be an equal delight to see Kenneth get the win again.
You mentioned, Brett, the rise in Japanese sprinting. I wonder if Yuki's been along to some of the sprint sessions recently to work on his finish line stats. Outkick Kenneth Mungara.
Well, so, yeah. Because Mungara said I was seeing a bit of a move at the drink station there. Always a bit of a challenge for the runners to cleanly get their drinks. Mungara is saying he's not going to leave it till the kick finish. He doesn't want to give Yuki that sort of opportunity. If it comes down to a sort of a two-person race there, no runner likes to have to resort to a kick finish. Undoubtedly, he was trying to break Yuki open before that, but Kawauchi just showed what a strong, fearsome competitor he was, that he just wouldn't be beaten, he wouldn't be broken until the very last moment.
It's like the rubber band. It just never snaps with Yuki. It just stretches and stretches and stretches, and then he claws his way back in again. And it was an impressive run, and maybe that's where he just done that little bit too much work to get back on last year to then have enough to outkick Kenneth Mungara down the straight. Look at this. That's the turn at Pearly. As we said, just a bit over 15k's they've done down there. That's an absolutely stunning part of the coast down that way, and it's, as a runner, when you're there, you light up because it's just beautiful. The beach is literally only 100 metres to your left, and then they spin around and they're heading back our way now.
And that's one of the beauties of this course, Brett. We talk about it being fast and flat, but from a technical perspective, very too few turns. There's a couple of S-bends and snake turns, but that's easy to maintain momentum. It's those big U-turns which can sometimes slow the runners down. And of course, I've seen some European courses. I don't know if it was Milan or Rome or Barcelona. It looked like it had 20 to 25 turns. So this would be a benefit to the runners as well. We'll have a turn at the top end at around 34, 35 kilometres, but you can maintain your momentum like this this sort of course?
Well, it's definitely one of the straightest courses around. I think you would have a hard time finding a course with fewer turns. And personally, I did run the Gold Coast Airport Marathon a few years ago for the first time, and I found the layout of the course with the placement of the turnarounds was psychologically, from a psychological standpoint, ideal. You basically run out straight for 15 kilometers, and that's just kind of getting into your flow, getting into your rhythm, do the turnaround, and then you have from 15 kilometers to about 37 kilometers basically running straight. And so you can just get in, once you're warmed up in the first 15K, you're just cruising along for the next 20 plus K. One more turnaround, 5K to the finish. That's where you can really turn it on and try to push into the finish. So it's an excellent course layout from the psychological point of view of racing.
Very easy on the runners. Well, thanks for joining us, Brett. We look forward to hearing your insights a little bit later after the race, and we know you'll be doing some translation. Steve Monaghetti is going to join us in here. So Mono running the 10K yesterday. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
It's a pleasure to be back.
We'll watch Yuki's race unfold with interest. So that 15K split, Robbo, very even. There's nothing radical about the pacing. Sometimes I know, for example, in Jonah Chesham's Barcelona race, they were 14:45 through the first 5K, and then a couple of other sub-15 splits.
Yeah.
We don't normally see that here at the Gold Coast. That is kind of 2.7, 2.8 range, but we usually see a more even pace.
Yeah. I mean, it's good fun seeing them go out at erratic paces sometimes. How long can they hold on to it? But now this lot seem to have a more measured approach here today, and look, it's wide open. You've got to say at the moment, if they can just hang on to this for another 15 Ks, and then we start to get to the back end, really the business end, and we'll get a good look at them as they come up here past the start finish area, 30 odd Ks in and 32 Ks, and that's where it really will start. But yeah, it's all looking good for them at the moment here in this elite lead men's field.
Welcome into the commentary box here, legend of Australian running, Steve Monaghetti. You've been a real feature of the webcast in many years gone by. You love this event, and it's just an annual sojourn for you, isn't it, to the Gold Coast from the very chilly climes of Ballarat?
Apparently negative temperatures down there this morning, Ed. So, Robbo, good to be along. Always nice to be back. Just a great atmosphere, and, the racing here is friendly, it's fierce, it's fast, it's all the F's, so we were going well, and I think, where else would you want to be? Fast course, well organised, and looks like the boys and girls are on pace and having a good day today.
Before we go any further, Steve, quick congratulations to you, mate. You've just come in. You look like you've just woken up, but you've been conquering the half marathon course, 1:15:08. My sources tell me. Well done, mate.
Yeah, I was happy with that run, and it felt pretty good today. So just had a few tight sore spots, as we do when we get older. So I was happy to get through in one. But if you get through unscathed, that's a victory. No, it is really fast out there. It's a very, very fast half marathon course. I haven't done that since. Well, I think
your record-breaking year, or
yeah, well, I think I drew here in '93. I remember we did finish in the old car park. I think, but the course I have no recollection of it was that long ago. I don't remember anything about the course. Well, I think it went out that way, but it was fast then. But it's really fast. Lots of PBs today. The women, were fast. So it just seems like it's just a really good course to run.
By fast, you mean it's not hot. We sometimes get that radiant heat, particularly after 9 o'clock. But very little to no breeze to contend with. That wasn't a factor when you're out there.
No, I was sitting behind a couple of runners. I was doing the old experience running. Wasn't leading too many packs, but just lots of groups of people and pace really even because. As Brett mentioned, no turns in the half marathon course either. Really fast, you turn obviously up the other end, but it really just get into a rhythm, hold your rhythm really well. We were basically clicking off 3:31. Someone next to me was saying we were running 3:31k pace, just locked it in and away we went. And it was basically that. I think I ended up running 3:33 average, so we basically held that for the whole race. But some really quick guys in the half. So really nice morning out there.
Just think, Mono, if you'd have run 5 minutes quicker, you could have taken down Martin Rees from Wales, 54-year-old world half marathon record.
Yeah, I think those days are gone.
Yeah. Well, that's the extraordinary thing. We see, world age records here. Last year, I know, Mono, there was a guy who was pretty happy to beat you, John Shaw. So a world record for over 60, 2:45:23 last year. I was messaging with John last night. He's hoping to break that this year. So that's the extraordinary extraordinary thing, the fact that we just see elite runners at the top end, but also elite in these age categories. They seem to be getting quicker.
They do, and I think was it Dave Sweeney I was talking to was hoping to break the Australian half marathon record, I think, in before the race. I'm not sure how Dave went, but he was about 72 minutes or something, I think, is the Australian record. That's 55 to 60.
Yeah,
so, and it's amazing. And isn't it great to see so many runners setting, having those challenges? It doesn't matter what age you are, we're all getting out there and having a go. I was only, 15 minutes behind my PB. All these guys in there talking about PBs and girls, and I'm thinking, we won't have that conversation.
I know, it gets embarrassing. Well,
it's your fault for running so fast.
I ran 65 here twice and a half, and those PB days for me are not under threat. But we've got to accept that. As we get older, you get a bit more mellow, and that's the reality.
But these are the great things, and the sport of running, the fact that you can continue to do it, maybe a little bit slower than in your red hot days, Steve. But we've got Kenneth Mungara here. We've been talking him up on the broadcast this morning, but he's the 41, 42, 43-year-old world record holder. He could very likely touch up his current 43-year world record, and he might go on and get the clean sweep for most of the 40s. I don't know if Haile Gebrselassie in a hurry to come back and start having a crack at some of these records, but and then to have John here as well. So we've got some. These guys, that's legendary to be doing that stuff. They maybe don't get the praise they probably should deserve.
And another record I've just been drawn to my attention, perhaps a little more obscure, but if Kawauchi goes sub 2:12, which he probably should unless there's something goes horribly wrong, that would be a world record for the most number of sub 2:12 runners. That'd be his 23rd career sub 2:12, and that would break the world record held by an Ethiopian, Abebech Bekele. So world records galore. That speaks to the pace of the course, the quality of the field, and I guess the super competitive nature out there.
Exactly, and interestingly, I was talking to Deep, and I said, because Kawauchi's ran under. I think he's got 17 runs under 250, something phenomenal. And I said to Dick, how many times did you run under 210? You know Rob's answer? I don't know. Isn't that, you think you'd know, but we
could probably tell him.
We could tell him.
4 or 5, I would think. But yeah. So we're looking at these aerials here. We're starting to get into the more business end of the race, approaching that as we come up towards the 1 hour mark. Ashiki's been doing all the front running amongst the pacers, Steve. Would you have expected the other Kenyans to share it a bit, or would that be part of the strategy? We may see him fall back soon and the other Kenyan pacers do some more work.
That's kind of how it works, and if he's travelling, obviously he's travelling well. If he's happy he'd be the designated, almost the first pace. You always have your list, so and then he might peel off. He might get to 20k, and he might peel off, and then we'll get the next one probably take over for maybe 4 or 5k. You try to do it in 5 or 5k lots. Really, that's kind of how it works. So he looks like he's happy rolling along out in front.
So they are now heading north on the course. It was interesting, Steve, talking to Ryan McDonald and sort of the overall strategy with the field this year. So in the past, we've seen some particularly African runners, 2.6, 2.7 runners. To their credit, obviously the marathon organisers identified the Mungara versus Kawauchi rivalry, setting that up again. I mean, once they knew they were locked in, they both wanted to come back, Mungara to defend his title. I think there was a fairly clever strategy. Well, what's the point in bringing 2.6 runners out who take the focus away from what will be just a really good race, and you consolidate that with some other runners around that 2.8, 2.9 mark, and you just get a terrific bunch and a chance for everyone to sort of, prove themselves, but to try and knock off those key guys from last year.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great race, and we've done some pre-race publicity, and they've been fantastic. The stories, the humour, the humility of the guys as well, and although Kenneth was opening up a bit, making some predictions, but
I know you're trying to tease it out of him, getting him to talk it up, but he was saying, no, I leave it down to action.
Yeah,
it's my action that will do the talking today.
That's right, yeah. And obviously I've got to know Kenneth well, and Yuki's always been terrific to work with, and that you can talk it up all you like, but it's out on the road where it counts. It's right now where it's business. So, and they're doing the business, and I think it'll be, I'll be interested. I worry a little bit that it will become a race, which is great. I forget about the times, and I just watch the race unfold, because we should remember that a marathon, as we all know, a marathon is a race amongst you and the course first, you and the field second, and times third. So let's just look for the tactics of how the race unfolds.
I love
how are they going on the time? Obviously, I've just...
Yeah, so we are on race record pace, and it's conservatively on race record pace. We haven't banked too much time. The other quote I loved from Mungara yesterday was, he says, "Don't worry about my age, marathon running is in my heart." So for him, it is something that comes deep from within, and I guess that's the same with all of these lead guys. Kawauchi, notably, for him it's not about the money. Here's somebody who could make lots more money with bigger races. Because of his government employment, there's actually some restrictions there that he can't take appearance money. But here's two guys who are running purists. They're almost old school and having the old time ethics and values, and they run for the love. They run to compete, they run to win, not necessarily for the money.
Yeah, and in the great, and that's very different. And I like that. You know, I think that's what marathon's about, as I say. It's all about the win, overcoming the course, you know, beating your own demons, as so many of the runners who run marathons and distance events, we all know that's the case. There'll still be some pride on the line today. I think this rivalry, whilst we're pumping it up, don't worry, it exists between those two as well.
So we're probably sort of coming up towards between 19 and 20 kilometres there. So the runners have turned north. Now we're seeing this closed, more compressed section of the race where the elite field has turned back around, going through the drink station there. The everyday runners, we won't call them the average runners. There's nothing average about somebody who runs a marathon, but the weekend warriors, I think, is an apt term. No matter what level you're at, Steve, for these guys to take on the challenge of the marathon and to see that they are laying it all on the line today. They running their own personal challenge. Finishing, I guess, is enough of a challenge. You talk about it being every man's Everest, and it is for many people out there.
And what I love about this section of the course is you get so much interaction. And you know, the elites, whilst they're focused, there's no doubt they will be enjoying, you know, the crowds on the other side, giving them a yell, looking across, seeing the pace groups. They'll understand what's going on. I really love this section of the course. It's really that human dynamics.
So energising.
And the elites, as well as we get a bit of a lift from it, you know, obviously, you know, the recreational runners looking at those guys and the way they're smooth and moving back on the road is just a delight. One of the great fascinations, isn't that terrific, that you can be a runner and you can be doing it with some of the best runners in the world. We're all out there on the same course on the same day, same start line, same finish line.
Well, people can walk away from today and the last couple of years saying they were a part of a world record day at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. Speaking of world record holders, we spoke about John Shaw in the over 60 category. His 10K split 39.12, so that's under 4-minute K pace. So that puts him ahead of his
4-minute Ks is 2:49. So if he's well under that, so he's a minute under. So if you multiply that by 4, that's 4 minutes. So he's well under.
About 61.10 through 20 Ks there for the elites at the front. So still maintaining that sort of pace. And interesting, you mentioned the everyday runners, but we had the white pacing group coming the other way there just before 20 Ks. Now that's the Pat Carroll running group, and that's the 3-hour 40 bus. So the 3-hour 40 has just got to look at what 3:03 pace looks like, and they would, as I said before, Monica, you feel that energy, don't you? You know, you get that blast of energy as a pack of 10 or 15 runners are flying towards you. Look at them, they're shoulder to shoulder. You could high-five the pacer there.
Well, some of them are actually clapping the elite guys as they go past. That energises them. That gives them a real thrill. They know it's two totally different races in one. But we see those 20K splits, and so we've picked up. Oh no, we're sort of still on that pace of about 3:03. Yeah, exactly. So that's bang on. But that's what we're looking for, aren't we? Even splits early on, Mike.
Well, I remember my run 2:08's 3:02. So if they're 3:03 and a half, you're adding another say. So they're around 2:09 right at this point. So they're right on.
That's what we bought you, Mono. The school teacher coming out in you.
Yeah, but I know my status. That's one thing.
Those days are a little bit behind you. But in terms
in running, that's it.
But in terms of the race itself, so this is fascinating to see. I'm always heartened when we've got a large group going through the half mark, because the more runners, the more competitive tension between them, and we've got all the key guys there. I'm sure Mungara's there. He's been very surreptitious sitting in the back of that group, not making any moves early on, nor would we expect to see him.
I knew it's
strength in numbers.
Actually, I'd agree with you. I'm assuming that means he's just hiding in the back doing no work.
That's old school marathon talk, hiding in the back. But just cruising along on the heels of the others, so,
and that's what you want to do. Obviously, we all know the marathon is a race of efficiency, and running at that pace, if you can tick off some Ks, it's almost like they're cheating Ks, because you're saying, oh, there's 5K. I don't feel any worse than I did 5K ago, and I'm running at the same pace. I'm 5K closer to the finish line. And obviously for Kenneth and Yuki, they know the course well. They know halfway is really through 25 to 30K here. Whilst it's not halfway in the race, that's where the race really starts. So they would be starting to get into their work now, happy with how the pace is going. Maybe surprised that there's so many in that lead group. I'm a little bit surprised.
I was going to say, Steve, I reckon this is the largest lead pack that we've held together on record pace. So we've had other years where we've had a big lead pack, but they haven't been on record pace at this point. So this speaks to, the volume and the depth that we've got. So, 12, 14 guys there. I mean, no one would be thinking about any strategic moves at this point. But as we approach coming back through Surfers Paradise, we'll give you a half marathon split very shortly. But this is a real race in the making, isn't it? It's almost waiting for that moment of anticipation when we see the first genuine move. We're seeing the pace of Ishiki waving for support. He's got them to halfway. That was obviously the strategy. His work is done.
And I think I love predictions. I like my predictions. He's waving the next paces through. His job is done. He's through halfway in 64.40. So there you go. So we're right on the money, 2.9. This pack can't stay together for much longer. There'll be a few guys having a look at their watch and going, oh, gee, maybe this is a little bit fast for me, 2.9 pace. So I expect to see some action pretty soon. Between here and 25K, we'll certainly sort them out, and then it'll be action stations from then through to this point here at 31.
Sure. Look, we're going to head down to an interview with the chairman of Gold Coast Events, Kerry Watson, who's been a driving force of this, the escalation of the Gold Coast Airport Marathon event. Mike Rabeat caught up with him just a little while ago. Kerry Watson, chairman of Gold Coast Events.
One of the men most responsible for making sure of the success of the 39th Gold Coast Airport Marathon is the chairman of Events Queensland, Kerry Watson. Kerry, another magnificent event, 39th. Who would have believed way back to September 1979, here we are 39 years later.
39 and magnificent. Over 25,000 involved and weather perfect. A great destination exposure. We're just delighted with the way it's gone.
And the Gold Coast Airport themselves have been on board now for 12 years. A wonderful spot, a bit longer.
15 years. We're delighted we've got sponsors of that size, and all our sponsors have been great.
It's been a magnificent weekend, hasn't it?
Well, it truly is. And we put it over 2 days because it just got so big we couldn't handle it. So on today we've got the half marathon and the full marathon. Just fantastic.
Well, next year the celebrations of 40 years. I should imagine there'll be a fair bit of reminiscing. But first of all, get this one out of the way.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of lies told next year. But it's great that people remember the feats and what they enjoyed with the Gold Coast Airport Marathon.
And you seem to be getting younger and younger, and the enthusiasm level is still as high as it was all those years ago when you first became chairman.
Yes, it's a long time ago. I've been chair for 25 years now, and it's just been an absolute pleasure. And I don't know about getting younger, but certainly sprightly.
Good on you, Kerry. Congratulations once again.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
One of our great ambassadors of the Gold Coast Airport Marathon is the legend himself.
Aerial shots between the 20 and 25 kilometre mark. So just to confirm that split, a very large group halfway in 64.36 minus. So that's just a fraction off race record pace. But the fact that we've got this large group, anything could happen. We're going to start to see some moves soon.
And don't be alarmed about that, because the paces are setting the pace, not the races. So there is a difference. So they will be able to accelerate. So this next lot of paces may run a little bit quicker, but once we get into the race, so once the paces are gone at 30k or something, there's a real ability then to pick up the pace. So don't be alarmed by that. They're still certainly on sub 2.9 pace, but I think that's about where it'll land.
but we'd have to see that through the next 10K. We wouldn't want to be trying to bank time from 35 kilometres onwards. Now, between now and 35 is where, if we're to get a race record, that's where they need to bank a little bit of time. That needs somebody being a little bit adventurous. We'll see the pacers do the work probably to, 28, 30 kilometres, but then the race unfolds. It needs somebody to show that courage to decide whether today is their day, whether they want to push it, as we've seen Kawauchi and Mungara do on past occasions.
Interestingly, my theory is that it looks like they're accelerating. It's often you almost only need to hold pace. If you're holding pace, you will drop people. So, but then it becomes a race. Maybe you need to just accelerate a couple of Ks here and there just to drop. But really, you don't need to pick it up very much. So, exactly what you're saying, Ian. It's difficult if you drop a minute behind, you're not going to pick that up in a hurry. But a couple of seconds here or there is significant. So, if they're running 3:04s and then they drop it to 3-minute Ks, that's significant.
Just got a wheelchair update for you, gentlemen, and it's the Battle of the Riches. Rich Coleman and Rich Nicholson out in front in the men's race, and I've got a 25k split for them, so they're on track for about a 1:47 finish at the moment. And in the women's race, Sarah Tate, the 19-year-old local Gold Coastian, she's in the lead there, and she's coming up to halfway at the moment. So, yes, she should hopefully get the win for her and her supporters here on her home deck, but that's what's happening in the wheelchair event. They're motoring along at a pretty good pace, 2-minute 30 pace for them in the wheelchairs, and so they're not going to be too far away from a finish. We'll keep you abreast of what's happening in that wheelchair race. A good hit out before the Commonwealth Games, which will, for the first time, feature a wheelchair marathon, which is really exciting.
We should be able to bring you some splits of the women's half marathon very shortly. They'll be coming through halfway, about less than a kilometre behind the men. But as we watch the races go through, now they're winding through a couple of stretches here that almost, in a sense, Steve, if it's just straight running all the time, you almost look for a little variety. Not big hills or massive U-turns, but just a bit of variety helps you adjust your cadence and just breaks it up a little bit, doesn't it?
It certainly does for the front runners. If you're sitting in behind, you don't look up the road very much, so you wouldn't know. But for the pacers and people leading, you do like a bit of variety. If it's a long, straight stretch, it's just hard to keep your concentration and your pace up. So you want it straight and not too many turns, but just, you don't want it to be too boring. So this is a very nice course, to be honest.
Yeah, so looking at some of those splits through 20k for the women. Abebech Bekele, Mercy Kabaris, Mesere Tolwak, so the Ethiopians and Kenyans, as we thought that they would be dominant. The Japanese have owned this women's race for most of the last 10 years, particularly winning the 5 straight last years. But I think the tide may be turning. It may be time for the African runners to bring home a win in the women's race.
They run very well here. Obviously, the time zone works really well with the Japanese runners, so it's not over yet, but it looks, if they've got a pack, then you would assume that the Africans will hang in there and run pretty well. They're on pretty good pace, I've got to say. They're on, I think they're on record pace, about 2:26. So if you're at, I'm not going to predict early we'll get the half marathon split, but you can add, 3.5 minutes onto that, and you're getting in the 60, in the 73, 74. So they're on that 2:26, 2:27 pace, which is good going.
Steve, we've got almost ideal air temperatures out there. The fact that we're not going to get that sort of day where we often have around 20, 21 degrees through the back end of the race. So we've spoken in the past about that radiant heat, even though it's a flat, fast course, but the radiant heat off the road, once you get to about 20 degrees, it can be a little bit of a factor for the runners. So the conditions will be in their favour.
Very much so, and that's a real positive. And you're right, especially on the northern part of the route. So once they come through here at 31, the northern section can be quite open and people find it a little bit warm, but I think that might be why we're seeing such a big pack, because the conditions are pretty much spot on.
And it serves everyone back in the field nicely as well. Those that are doing their first time, you don't want a stinking hot day if you're out there having your first time marathon, and if it stays cool for as long as possible, it's going to really help your 3, 4, 5 hour runners as well, and hopefully help them have a good run.
They're the guys. By the time we finish our coverage after 10 o'clock, we get the chance to relax and but still stay there and cheer on the back markers. But sometimes you see them coming through when it's 25 degrees and close to midday. We feel quite sorry for them. They are so courageous and I know you've spoken in the past, Steve, that almost it's tougher to run a marathon when you're 5 hours on your legs in 24, 25 degrees.
It is, and it's an endurance event, to be out there just on your legs and the energy you're building. You run out of glycogen, so your body runs out of energy. So you are calling in some deep desire, and you've trained up for it. You've got up at 4 in the morning to prepare. You start calling in all of those mental strengths. It's certainly a really big personal challenge, and we admire. That's why we are on the finish line. We'll have friends, family, acquaintances, stories that'll be unfolding today. Just to finish a marathon is such a wonderful achievement and a very satisfying thing for all of us.
Well, a memorable image for me from last year was Rob De Castella, Australia's greatest ever male marathon runner and the driver behind Indigenous Marathon Project. He was there not only cheering his IMP guys across the line, but he was high-fiving and hugging runners who'd been out there for 4.5 hours. Deek was standing in the blazing sun. He could have been in the hospitality tent enjoying a cool drink, but showing his passion, your passion that we share for this event. And it must have meant so much for those runners and for you guys to be able to talk to people, in the days leading up to it. Yeah, and I've paced, the 3-hour group before, and you think it's good for them having us there. You know what, Ian? It's good for us. I love, we love our sport. We've got a passion for running. To be able to share that out on the road with people, hearing their stories, and maybe be a part of something that's such a memorable thing in their life it's a pretty special honour for us to be able to do that, and we admire those runners and love being a part of it.
Just keeping an eye on our men's elite field here. Just a few people asking on social media about the coverage of the women's race. Unfortunately, we just don't have the resources to bring you the cameras for what's happening at the women's race. And in a mixed race, it is a little bit more tricky, I guess, mixed with the blokes in there. But we've got Benita Willis. We've sent her out to get some more updates, so we're going to get her back on the panel shortly and fill us in. But apologies, we're not able to bring you the live coverage at this stage of the women's race, but we'll keep you updated with how that's going, and definitely we'll get a good look at our leaders as they come through closer to the finish here.
Those
give us the splits
half marathon splits. So it's down to a lead pack of 2, Bekele and Kabaris from Ethiopia and Kenya, and they look as if they've developed just a little bit of a break on Mesere Tolwak from Ethiopia. So the race unfolding there in the women's, would you expect that, a 16-second gap, Mona? Would you think that's going to make much difference at this point in time?
Yeah, that'd be a race in 2, and I would think at this stage it suggests that that's a break, and 16 seconds, that's significant. So that's not just through a drink station or something. That's definitely a break. So we're down to 2, but it's very early. And the women, it's a different race for the women. Obviously, they have men around them, so they may have their own paces.
They'll have their paces, yeah. Brad Croker and Brady Threlful going through to 35, was that, I think, the plan, but they should still be there in touch at the moment, and so they'll have the benefit of those 2 paces there, and that's hopefully why we're seeing them still sticking to these nice even pace, and hopefully the boys can keep pulling them along there, and then they can hold on once the paces do step off. But yeah, fingers crossed we can double that up and bring him home in a 2:26 something, and getting very close to that race record. Yeah,
I think the paces, I think they're going to try and get to about 30.
Gotcha.
And if they're feeling okay, maybe even keep going a little bit longer. So that's really valuable.
So, Mona, before you leave us, and I know we're going to see and hear you, Pat Carroll, out on the course as they come back through that very critical 32-kilometre juncture, but there's a very large pack here. There's no visible signs of distress or we've got the pacers still doing their work there. Another pacer stepping off.
Yeah.
Hard to pick a winner at this point.
It is. And I think I counted 14, even if you're saying 3 or 4 pacers, it's a pack of 10, and they're all looking very comfortable. The pacers are looking the most agitated, not the runners, which is interesting. So I think the pacers are working pretty hard, which suggests that it's, it is keeping willing.
Rotich in the middle there in the black singlet, he's got a bit of more of a lopier style. I was wondering early on how long he'd hold on for. He looks like he's been working a bit harder than the others. And but he's still good on him. He's still plugging away at the moment. We're coming up to an hour 20 into the race, so they go through another aid station. It's interesting to see how they negotiate getting their drinks on board and having the gels. It's a tricky thing, isn't it, Mono? The plastic cups you sometimes get, you end up swallowing some and missing the rest of it, throw a bit over the head. But it's important they do get something in, yeah?
It all happens at drink stations, believe me. If you get out of there in one piece, it's a good outcome.
There's almost a strategy there, isn't it? You've got to be in and out quick, but be very aware of your surroundings. I mean, we do see runners at the elite level get a bit tangled up sometimes, but...
and they may have special drinks, Ian, so they'll be looking for a particular bottle. They might have labelled it, and if you miss it, you know, it affects you. You think, oh, gosh, I missed my drink. Should I go back and get it? Or, God, do I just take a water? So it can unsettle you a bit.
Yeah. Well, we're going to let you go because we'd love to see you and Pat give us that real live atmosphere feel out on the course there. So thanks for joining us as we start to get towards the business end of the race. And
it's exciting.
We'll watch the race unfold.
I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll give a report through and look forward to chatting you from up on the important part of the stage where we say that the race starts at about 31k. So I'll bring a report in and look forward to watching it. What's turning out to be a very exciting race.
Thanks for joining us, Mona. We're going to have Benita Willis join us shortly, and Mike Rabid is back out on the course with another interview out to the stage, I think with Pat Carroll, former Gold Coast Marathon winner.
Helps if you turn it on. Good morning, ladies and gents. Hello to everyone and welcome to the Gold Coast. Hands up all of those that completed the ASICS half marathon today. Give yourselves a big round of applause. Well done, you lunatics. 21.1, and they're still out there, and we just had a look, as you've seen on the screen, about 1 hour 16 in the marathon, and they really are motoring along. Let's recap. We're going to do some presentations of the ASICS half marathon very, very shortly. But for those of you who weren't here yesterday, just a little bit of a recap. In the Southern Cross University 10K run yesterday, Timothy Lefroy won the men's in 29.48. In actual fact, there were 2 seconds between first and third in the men's Southern Cross University 10K run yesterday. Eloise Wellings from New South Wales was the winner of the women's in 32.55, and that was absolutely fantastic. And of course, it was Kids' Day yesterday as well. We had the Zespri 2K Junior Dash, and Matthew Lowe won that in 6.53, and Kaya Anderson won the girls in 6.58. So only 5 seconds between the boys and the girls, and that was absolutely fantastic. In the 4K Junior Dash, Jackson Patterson Wright won that in 12.37, going back to back, and Chloe Randall in 14.23 won the girls. And today, of course, we have the ASICS Half Marathon presentation. We'll be back a little bit later on with the Gold Coast Airport Marathon presentation, the Wheelchair Marathon presentations, the IAAF Oceania Area Marathon Championships, and the Queensland Marathon Championships. So plenty to look forward to. We want you to stay and enjoy the ambience here at the beautiful Broadwater on the Gold Coast right throughout the day. It's indeed my pleasure now to invite to the stage the General Manager Marketing of ASICS Oceania, Mr. Sam Chu, to the stage to do the presentations for the ASICS Half Marathon. How about a big Gold Coast welcome for Sam Chu? Good on you, Sam. And joining us, I'm sure he's on the stage here somewhere, is the Chairman of Events Management Queensland, Kerry Watson. Kerry, to you and your team once again, thank you very, very much. And now I'd like to invite our place getters in the female ASICS Half Marathon to the stage. And these are our podium finishers this year, and 3 wonderful athletes indeed. In third place, all the way from Narracourt in South Australia, Jessica Trengo, in a time of 1:11:36. In second place, in a time of 1:11:15, from New South Wales, Millie Clark. And our winner, all the way from California, the United States, in a time of 1:10:32, our winner, Sarah Hall. And we're going to ask Sarah, Millie and Jess to just move up onto the podium 1 there for some happy snaps. And Sam, please, you come and stand up here on the podium there with the girls as well. There we go. So, ladies and gents, how about another big hand for Jessica, Millie and Sarah? And while we get Jess and Millie to stay with us, Sarah, I'm going to invite you to the microphone to say a couple of words.
Hey everyone, congratulations to all the finishers out there. Wasn't that a beautiful morning to run? There's nowhere I'd rather be racing in July than here on the Gold Coast. I came all the way from Ethiopia, which was not a quick trip to get here. I think it was like 30 hours of travel, but I knew that we were going to get perfect conditions out here, and I had a couple bouts of food poisoning over there, but I stepped on that line today and I was like, you know what? This is too perfect the conditions. I'm just going to go for a PR. And I didn't quite get there, but I was spurred on thinking about how I was going to be dedicating this race to my charity, the Hall Steps Foundation, doing work with orphans in Ethiopia. And that kind of spurred me on that second half when I was starting to get tired. So I hope you guys had a great race too. And yeah, good luck in whatever's next.
Well, once again, ladies and gentlemen, how about a big hand for Jessica Trengove, Millie Clark and our winner, Sarah Hall. Thank you, ladies. Beautiful. All right, let's move to our men, and I'd like to invite our place getters for the ASICS Half Marathon men's race to the stage. And Sam is going to do the honours and do the presentation again for the ASICS Half Marathon for men. In third place today, in a time of 1:04 and 12 seconds from Victoria, Dijon Gabriela Selassie. From Victoria. In second place, in a time of 1:03.49, also from Victoria, Liam Adams. And our winner today, in a time of 1:03.14, from Sudayama in Japan, Hiroki Yamagishi. And we'll get Dijon and Liam to hop up there with Hiroki for some happy snaps here from our... Sam, please hop up there. Beautiful. Now, Sam, I reckon there's some business here. Some ASICs could do with... The boys could do with some new ASICs here.
So the podium finishes in the men's and women's ASIC Half Marathon. Fantastic to see out there the podium finishes. The United Nations of runners there from around the world in the men's and women's races. We are going to be back with live action here, and the race is starting to unfold. We are down to a pack of about 12 runners. We've still got the pacers doing their work out there. And Shoyo Osaki is somebody from Japan who is amongst the elite runners who is starting to feature in the picture there. And Kenneth Mungara, we're finally starting to see him in the picture. And Rotich, one of the pacers, Luca Rotich from Kenya, has moved up to do some of the work. Benita, welcome back into the commentary box here. We love where we are now in the race. The preliminary, the warm-up has happened, and now we get to the business end.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting close to the business end now, and well over halfway for these men. And, you know, it's when you start to kind of feel it a little bit, and some of the guys that are just hanging on to that pack there maybe start to drop off, and then the guys that are going to be in contention for the win rise to the front of the pack, and they just want to keep pushing the pace as soon as this last pacemaker drops out. So, yeah, it's getting close to the business end now, but there's still a long way to go in marathon terms as well.
We haven't seen much of him, but Kenneth Mungara is sitting right at the back there. What do you read into his tactics? He's obviously been very keen to just ride on the coattails of the others, do minimal amount of work. That's got to be fairly smart running.
Oh, that's very smart running, and he wouldn't be one of the guys that is about to drop off. I think, you know, he's got confidence in what he knows he can do, and he's probably just biding his time. He knows he won in a sprint finish last year, and he knows he can do the same thing again this year. So, yeah, it's smart tactics from him, and, you know, he's trying to get the easiest run as he can for as long as he can, really, but he's back in his sprint finish.
the women's 25-kilometre spitz, Bekele, the Ethiopian runner. She is on and around race record pace. What can you tell us about the women's times and the way that race is unfolding?
Yeah, this is going to be quite an interesting race, and she's on race record pace. Fastest in the field, PB of 2:23, and she knows that she can run fast. I mean, her PB is from 2015, but she still ran 2:24 last year, so she knows she can run fast. She's never had a go on this course before, but I think she'll be keen for the win.
If we get a Bekele winning the Gold Coast Marathon, it'll make some headlines, Ian. As you mentioned before, a rich history with that, associated with that name in the world of running. So, maybe that could be a nice little...
Well, we look through the women's list. Gebre Celeste,
yes.
Kiprono. These are probably the Smiths and Jones and Walshes of the African running scene, but certainly famous and rich heritage, which us as purists and long-time followers of the sport know and appreciate it. I don't expect a lot of a webcast audience to appreciate African runners from the 1960s and 70s, but here we are seeing the lead pack now.
13 or so, I think, in there, Ian, and they're sorting each other out a little bit here. Few of the runners just testing the waters and seeing how they're feeling.
Fiora Daddy of Ethiopia, we haven't seen him before. He's moved up to the pack to do a little bit of work. He's an elite runner. He's not a pacer. So we've gone beyond 25 kilometres, and now is the point where, unless the pacers, one of the remaining two pacers is having a particularly great day, we're not going to see them feature. So now we will see the genuine contenders, and fairly soon we'll get a 30-kilometre split, and that will tell us a number of things, Benita, because that's where the race begins. That's where we look for that key marker of whether we're on race record pace. We wouldn't want to drop too much off it, but I always remain ambitious. I always talk up the race record even until the last kilometre here.
Yeah, certainly, You don't want to be too ambitious, but you do want to be pushing on from now.
So that was the 20k mark they just went past there, about 1:29:20. So they're about to head over the bridge and head back to us just past the start and the finish here. We've sent Steve Moneghetti out and Pat Carroll. They'll give us a sense of what it's like out up there on the road. But Ian and B, I can't remember a pack as big as what we're seeing here coming up to the 30-32k mark, and we'll see some moves. I expect we'll see who's feeling good, who's been struggling, who's been playing the bluff game, and we'll see what's going to happen here. But this is pretty exciting, and if they can keep this big group ticking along, it means that we'll hopefully keep that pace going for a little bit longer as well. But Mungara, I'm intrigued to see his approach. He's just on the fringes, sort of the back right of this lead group at the moment. So I would say he's worked probably the least of any of them up in that group of 13 so far. Yuki, as we saw, he's been third or fourth most of the time. So Kenneth Mungara, is he feeling fresh? Is he feeling good for that three-peat? It's going to be a historic day if he can make that happen. He was a late starter to running. Only began running literally less than 10 years ago at the age of 32 or 33. So he's a late starter, but he's a fast learner. He's obviously a canny runner, and I guess he's putting all those wiles and expertise and the lessons that he's learned in the number of races that he's run. So, and I understand this. It's a fascinating story. He's from Limuru. He's not from the E10, the Eldoret, the Rift Valley area where so many of the famous Kenyan runners are from. He's from an area in the south of Kenya, and he's a hairdresser, a barber. And he was cutting the hair of a lot of runners, and they were talking about their tempo runs and their long runs and what paces they were pushing. And he learned a lot of it just on the job.
I think there was even a bit of trash talking, wasn't there? You couldn't do this.
I'll tell you youngsters up, and that's what he's ended up doing. And he leads training groups in Limuru with the youngsters, and they try and beat him. He tries to keep them covered. And here he is, topping his age in the world in his early 40s and mid 40s, and winning the Gold Coast Marathon the last couple of years. So it is a fascinating story, and it's great to have him back here again.
We talk about the Kenyan running heritage and culture. The Kalenjin tribe in that area, Bitin and the Rift Valley, they're the most famous. They produce the most world champions. But because he's from Nairobi, Mungara is from the what they call Kikuyu tribe, which is the largest ethnic population in Kenya. So We don't hear as much about them because of this epicentre, Benita, up in Itten and that area where most of the world champions come from. But so I guess he's going a little bit against the running trend. But Mungara, he is canny, he is wily, he has the track record. We're starting to see the group split just open up a little bit. So we've lost a couple off the back there. We'll see if we can identify who that is. Mungara's running in a blue singlet, so I don't think that's him. So is that Hidru and one of the other Ethiopians? But certainly we see seeing the Japanese Yuki Kawauchi, of course, right there in the thick of it. We shouldn't be surprised at all about that. This is where the move often comes. We're just starting to see one of the most tactical parts of the race, 30 kilometres, as we say. This is where the race unfolds. And then we come just shortly after that where we'll cross to Motters and Pat Carroll, four-time Gold Coast Marathon winner, where we'll see them at the probably a key strategic part of the course where we have this very small rise, which if anyone's going to make a move, 10K from home, that's usually the point we see it.
Yeah, Monas was talking about that a lot yesterday, and certainly that's probably where we're going to see it when they go over the rise and then down the other side. And, these guys, they know it's coming up. It could be a strategic move. They might have in their heads, okay, this is where I'm going to go on the course. But sometimes they might catch the others off guard and do it just past the hill. So this will be very exciting, and we'll see if this race can break up.
So we're seeing Noguchi, the other Japanese runner, who is the husband of the 2015 favourite Risa Takenaka. He's starting to lay down the law a little bit. We'll talk about this, race within the race of the Japanese runners. Noguchi leading for a little while there, but Yuki's not having a bar of that. Yuki is very keen to let everyone know he's the best Japanese runner in town this weekend. Yuki, well, this is the point at which he broke away last year. We saw him really apply a bit of pressure. Mungara went with him. Nobody else could go with him. But Kawauchi getting a very vital drink at a vital stage of the race. And we're coming through the cooling sprays there. We're going to be crossing down very shortly to Steve Monteghetti and Pat Carroll. The guys, be fascinating to hear their insights as the race unfolds. Mungara sitting at the back there in the blue singlet. So
that's Chesham just in front of him in the yellow singlet there as well. So they're holding on. But that's a 10-metre gap that he's kind of got there.
Yeah, so we're seeing the pack of 14 run down to 7. Let's see how Motter and Pat Carroll give us their take on it out on the course.
And here we are on the very significant hill, the only hill on the course. I'm here with Pat Carroll, but it is often where the race seems to be determined. So we've got a big pack, but we are at the crucial point.
Very much so, Steve, and as the camera's got a long shot there, you can see as they go past the 31k mark, and we're about to go past the start-finish line, where there's a lot of atmosphere as they go over this little hill. You can't even call it a hill, mate. I mean, it's only a bump in the road. I mean, this is the only rise in the Gold Coast Airport Marathon, but just over the 31k mark now, and we both ran this morning, Steve. Absolutely perfect conditions for running. I mean, I did the half marathon, so did you. How did you find? I found the conditions perfect this morning.
Absolutely ideal, and that will really help. Not a lot of humidity, and I think the work up the hill and then down the other side, the only downhill section of the course as well, is often where the race is, the winning break is made, so look out.
Very much, and it can get a bit lonely because you're going past that finish line, you've got to head out and back for another 11k or 5.5k out, 5.5k back, but here they are, Steve, they're just about to run past us, mate, as we can have a bit of a glimpse over our shoulder. We've got a pack of 9 runners, and Kenneth Mungara is in there as a host of Japanese runners, and the Japanese have had some great wins over here over the years, and what a solid pack, Steve.
So we've got Kenneth, we've got Yuki, we've got a lot of company around that though, so we're certainly in for a fantastic race. It's all set up for a classic finish yet again.
Certainly is. Wasn't that fantastic last year? And no one's ever won it 3 times in a row, or no males won it 3 times in a row, but it's any man's race, as we both know, mate. We've been there at the business end, and you can go from feeling sensational to all of a sudden someone's pulled the plug. So let's just hope we can get a good pack for a long period of time and another fast time here at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon.
I think you can sense the anticipation, the excitement, a lot of atmosphere out here. They head out now. We can't wait to see them back for that exciting finish.
Very much so, and such a massive crowd waiting for these runners at the finish, and a great atmosphere out around Runaway Bay when we were out there this morning, and there's so much atmosphere on the course this morning, and such great. Next year being the 40th year of the Gold Coast Airport Marathon, just keeps getting better and better, Steve.
It does. Well, they're heading out. We're running down to the finish line because that's where we want to be to see how this all plays out. Exciting times. Thanks, Pat. See you then.
Thanks, Mona and Pat. Suddenly a pack of 9 becomes a pack of 5 or 6. We have Ethiopia, Kenya and Japan, of course. So Shoya Osaki, Takuya Noguchi, Yuki Kawauchi, 3 Japanese runners in this lead pack of 6. Faera Dadi, Douglas Chebi, and of course, Kenneth Mungara. So we have a race is starting to unfold. This is the part that we love. Not that we think that the first 32 kilometres, Benita, is dull in any way at all, but it is that cat and mouse game. This is what we live and breathe for. This is where we want to see the race unfold. And the fact that we've got 6 runners here, the tactics will really come into play.
Yes, Ian, and we saw Kenneth Mungara just like kind of hovering right at the back. And then even since Steve and Pat have been talking, he kind of went right up to the front of the field within a few minutes. So he means business, and he knows that, you know, a move might come with some of the Japanese guys. So he's ready, and he must be feeling good.
From his perspective, he would trust his finishing kick over Kawauchi, but what he may not know is what sort of finishing kick particularly the other Africans have. So, but Mungara has vowed not to leave it until the last few hundred metres. We would expect to see a move either by him or by one of the others. Now it becomes quite a fine balancing act, doesn't it, for the athletes? You're very tempted to try and apply the pressure to the other runners around you to see if someone will wilt, if someone will crack, but that depends what strength you feel you've got from within and what's worked for you as a tactic in the past. Is that much of an issue going on past races?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the marathon you've got to, you always feel different in every marathon you do, and you've got to go on what you know that your strength is, whether you're a fast finisher or you have to go from a long way out, but you also have to kind of get a bit of a gauge on how the others are going, how they're breathing, especially if you've never raced them before, and that's always a factor. If you've never raced people before, I think, you know, some of the Japanese guys, they're very much knowing each other's race plans and strengths and weaknesses. But yeah, this will be very interesting because you know, there's a lot of heads-to-heads that we don't know the results of. So yeah, they want to play to their strengths, but then you always feel different in every marathon. So yeah, it's going to be a tough finish.
Just a quick update on the women's race. So they'll be coming up to the 30k split. We'll get that shortly. But I'll tell you at the 25k split, we mentioned Bekele out in front. It looks to have the control of the race. 22nd lead at the moment from Mercy Kibarus. Elizabeth Chirono's up in the 3rd place, and Risa Takenaka's moved up a bit too. So she and Elizabeth Chirono running together at the moment through 25Ks. But what about this run? Virginia Maloney, the Aussie, she's on target for 2:28.42 at the moment, which would be amazing if you can stay in that ballpark. And Mary Davies, the Kiwi, on track for 2:30.02. Quick shout out as well, Celia Sullivan in 9th place overall, on track for a 2:33.40. So Celia and Virginia, they're our Aussie leaders in the women's race at the moment.
A fairly hot and fairly tight finish. Yuki and Kenneth Mungara know how to win the race, which is, you know, it is huge in these kind of events. So, yeah, this is going to be a very interesting finish.
We've probably come through about 34 kilometres there, just looking at this group. A fascinating race unfolding between the Japanese and the Africans. So 3 Japanese runners at this point in time. I didn't think we'd have quite so many, but the depth of Japanese running that we have these days. So Yuki Kawauchi, we've also got Noguchi, and the 3rd Japanese runner there is that still Osaki? Well, Yuki Kawauchi is really starting to apply his presence to the race.
women's race, Ian Virginia Maloney up into 5th place, so through 30 Ks in 1:45.31. Bekele, the leader, she's got a minute and a half now to Mercy Kibarus. In 2nd place, Elizabeth Chirono in 3rd, another 10 seconds back, running with Risa Takenaka. So it looks like it's going to be a battle for 3rd place, but don't rule out Virginia Maloney, who's only 30 seconds away from that battle for 3rd at the moment. So that's going to be a pretty exciting finish to that women's race. But the men here heading north up through Labrador here, and they'll hit that northern turnaround soon, and it's really going to start to sort them out.
The pack of 6 has suddenly whittled to a pack of 5, with Takada slightly falling off the back there. Noguchi, Kawauchi, Jonah Chesham, and of course Kenneth Mungara sitting right in there very neatly, just conserving energy, not doing any of the front running at all. Slightly different tactics from last year, but that's no doubt very deliberate for him. I think we've got some pictures of the men's wheelchair marathon race finish. Let's take you back to that finish from a few moments ago.
Yeah, so heading down the blue carpet here, and it was to be Richard Coleman, 1 from 1. Kurt Fernley came here last year. He hadn't raced at the Gold Coast before, so he has a 100% record. And now Rich Coleman can join that club. Doing it, so maybe we'll get them back here post-Com Games next year. They can have a showdown in that men's wheelchair race. The women's wheelchair race still going. Sarah Tate, I believe, still in the lead there, the Gold Coast local. So we'll keep you posted as to Sarah's progress. She should be coming up to a finish shortly.
Right, we are watching a fascinating battle unfold. 5 runners, 3 Japanese, 2 Africans. We've just gone through 35 kilometres, still on and around record pace. And there is the lead female. So there we are seeing the race favourite, the fastest runner, the Ethiopian Abebech Bekele, just going through that 32-kilometre stage, surrounded by pacers. Getting plenty of help there. Very slight of frame. She looks like she's, 5 foot and 45 kilos. Benita, not much of her, obviously races at a very lean, lightweight.
Oh, she's doing phenomenally well and got a huge lead at the moment. But I'm just looking at Virginia Maloney splits here for every 5K. 17:48, 17. Maloney splits here for every 5K. 17:48, 17:23, 17:36, 17:32, 17:45, 17:25 to 30K. She is going so well, on pace for 2:28. Can't wait to watch her last little bit.
So we're just looking, there's the splits for 35 kilometres, and I'll get Robbo to get a comparative measure of how the 5K splits have unfolded for the men up to 35 kilometres with just 7K to go. But we're seeing Hashimoto, Noguchi, Kawauchi. So 3 Japanese runners in the lead pack of 5. Jonah Chesham, my pre-race favourite, and everyone's pre-race favourite, Kenneth Mungara, there. Kawauchi just slipping off the back just a little bit there, but Noguchi looks very, very strong, very, very relaxed. So look at those splits, Robbo.
Yeah, I mean, it's been fairly even. The one 20 to 25, they dropped off a little bit, 15:34 for that 5K. The one after that, 15:25, but that last 5K to 35, 15:08. So that's rolling up their sleeves.
That's the one that split them apart, and that was through the tactical point of the race where we thought it would start to unfold, where we the pack split from 9 to 6, now down to 5. 15:08 was in fact the fastest split of the 35-kilometre journey so far. Whether we get a similarly quick split through 35 to 40K, but this is a race in 5 now. There can be no backing off. There can be no, pulling off of the pressure at all, Benita. These guys have to be running faster, and then it's a matter of applying the pressure to those around you. Noguchi looks fantastic. He looks as if he's running just full of confidence. We could be looking at the race winner there, but of course the others, they're not backing off either.
No, Noguchi's running with so much confidence, and he's just taking this race by the horns and just trying to smash it out. And I feel like he hasn't even taken his gloves off yet, so he's just obviously not feeling hot or anything.
Well, look at them all. I mean, Mungara, we know he was at the back of that lead pack for so long. Who's spent the least? It's interesting to try and figure that out. Yuki, he hasn't even looked close to producing the grimace yet. So, I hope they can really turn up the heat a little bit more in this next 5K. We'll see. But they're sticking together for the time being. And just going back to Virginia Maloney, Benita, she's come in today before lining up for the Gold Coast Airport Marathon this morning. Her PB 2:34.27 from the Melbourne Marathon last year. So if she can stick with this, she's looking to annihilate that PB, rip 5 minutes off it, and put herself in contention for a spot on the Aussie team for Com Games next year.
Oh, I mean, what a breakthrough, and I'm just so excited to follow her and through the field. And, you know, when you're passing people in these marathons and getting better each 5K, you get so much confidence, and she's going to smash her PB if she just keeps this going. So we're just so excited to watch this women's race unfold.
Look at live pictures of Yuki Kawauchi, who is sitting at the back of a pack of 5. This is quite historic. We've never had, in the history of Gold Coast Marathon, such a tight, numerous pack, 5 runners running on and around record pace this deep in the race. This will hopefully push us to a race record, but more than anything, this will push us to a fascinating unfolding. Jonah Chesham, the tallest of the group there, looks a little bit ungainly, but he looks as strong as any other runner there. Coming through the final U-turn, and they now push back south on the final 5 kilometre homeward stretch. Jonah Chesham, is this going to be his day? Is this the day when he, as he did in Barcelona earlier this year in March 2017, a surprise winner? He was certainly one of the pre-race favourites in the top 5 or 6 times, but this is an intriguing race, Robbo. I can't pick a winner. I sense that Kawauchi is struggling a little bit, just starting to see the grimace there. Hashimoto looks to be strained on the face. The other 3 look pretty relaxed.
He's not getting serious until we see the grimace with Yuki often, so you just don't know. I love the look of Kenneth Mungara. I just think he hasn't worked too much to this point. It's really hard to tell, but yeah, I just think he's ready to pounce. But as we say in the game, they just went through 37 Ks there at that turnaround. So there's only a park run to go here now for these men. And yeah, if they can, we'll see what this 5K split's going to end up like. But if they can keep this going, you know, you think Kenneth Mungara maybe you'll make a move shortly, but interesting to try and predict what's going to happen here in these closing stages.
We've also got a split there for our old friend Lee Troop through 25 kilometres, 1:31. That puts him in the top 50, so it will be a tough day out on the road there for Lee Troop, who was back here running symbolically, ran alongside his father yesterday and his children. His father who's just overcome a serious battle with brain cancer, a very triumphant 10-kilometre race that they shared yesterday. Lee Troop also backing up and running the marathon. So, less than 5 kilometres ago, we are on the edge of our seats watching this race unfold. We have Mungara, the 2016-2015 champion. We have Kawauchi, the 2013 champion. We have Noguchi. We have Hashimoto and the newcomer, Jonah Chesham, just in his 2nd marathon, looking to prove himself. But Mungara and Noguchi, they are really trying to force the pace here as we come probably about 4 kilometres to go, Benita.
Yeah.
This is when, if you can break the pack open, if you can break those colleagues around you, now's the time when you want to be doing it.
Yeah, certainly. And we've seen Noguchi and Chesham just kind of being at the front for quite a while. And now Mungara's come there and he's come to the front and he's made quite a decisive move. We see Noguchi running alongside him, but certainly Mungara, he's pointing a bit. He's kind of trying to boss Noguchi around a little bit with what he wants to do, but he hasn't kind of been predominantly at the front for quite a while in this race. And Yuki's just hovering around there in 3rd place. And those guys, those 2 past winners, yeah, I don't know. I like the look of Mungara as well, but Noguchi, he's not lying low yet. He's right. He still looks pretty good.
Well, his wife, of course, Risa Takenaka, the 2015 champion. This would be, if Noguchi was to triumph, would be husband and wife winners of Gold Coast Airport Marathon within the space of 2 years. We are seeing a tactical move. Mungara, Noguchi, in the space of less than 500 metres, we've lost Jonah Chesham. We've lost Hashimoto. This is now a race potentially in 3 because we'd never write Yuki off at this late stage. But that rubber band looks to be splitting a little bit. Noguchi and Mungara really applying the pressure to Yuki.
There's the grimace, folks. That's what we know and love. And don't rule him off. And you're quite right in not doing that because it's stretching, as we know. but he's just as likely to find something. Someone will give him a cheer, and he'll be back on the feet of Mungara. But yeah, what a run from Noguchi here at the moment. And Mungara, he's looking like he's starting to have to do a little bit of work now, but I still just love the way he's just bouncing along here now, as if he's around the dirt track at his home in Limuru in southern Kenya. And he knows how to win, as you mentioned, Benita. So could we see that three-peat happening here right now?
Kenneth Mungara and Noguchi from Japan. Takuya Noguchi, this is a race into. They've really applied the pressure. I suspect we're down around, 3-minute kilometre splits here, Benita, because one of them really had to apply the pressure, but these two guys have opened it up in front of the other.
Yeah, definitely. I think I don't want to rule Yuki out, but looking like one of these two guys might take the win here. Noguchi looked like he was dropping back a bit before. He might have been going through a bit of a bad patch, but now he looks like he's kind of moved right up and running alongside Mungara. Yeah, I mean, he's still looking really good. And obviously Mungara was sitting at the back of the pack for a long time. We've seen Yuki there. Yuki's grimacing, but we're not ruling him out because we've seen him come back before, and which is very hard to do in a marathon, is get a little bit dropped and coming back onto the pack. But there's still enough time for Yuki to catch up, and he's going for it too.
He's extraordinary. He's the most resilient marathoner that I could ever recall seeing. I mean, once people get dropped off packs like this, 99 out of 100 times, they're gone. You would never factor them back in. But Kawauchi, he's right there. He's still there.
He's right there.
It's only 10 to 15 metres. And he's the sort of runner who, once he has a sniff, once he, incredible competitive instinct kicks back in, he doesn't give up easily. But the area shot maybe gives us a little bit more perspective. That's maybe closer to 20 metres. But and I guess the decision for him is just how hard does he push, knowing there's got a World Championships 5 weeks away. His resilience, his ability to bounce back, his recovery from hard marathons, and having raced only 3 weeks ago for 50 kilometres, just defies all logic and belief. But Mungara and Noguchi, we again, like last year, it's a Japanese versus a Kenyan. Yes. It's just a different Japanese runner in the lead too this time.
That might be. He might just be falling off the back. We might have to let him go soon. But there's a comment. There's a saying now in the running game: "Zip up the Yuki suit." There's a Twitter account in honour of the Yuki suit at Yuki suit, and that's the saying. Zip it up and go for it. Suck it up and go. But that might be a little bit too much now. And given that World Champs marathon coming up in 5 weeks, he might just be thinking, right, just let it. We'll let this one have to go today. He might come back next year and have another crack. But up the road, his Japanese compatriot giving Kenneth Mungara a good run for his money. And Benita, yes, look at his body language. It's hard to see his eyes behind those glasses, but he's looking comfortable. He's just bouncing along. His form hasn't really changed at all.
No, I mean, he looks really good. It's very hard to pick between them. And, they can hear the crowd. They've just passed the 39-kilometre mark, and they're coming back right into a sea of people to cheer them on. And they know that they're almost finished, but they've still got a few K to go, just over 6 minutes of running. And, it's going to be so close. It's awesome.
Well, looking at Mungara, this is familiar territory from last year. This is exactly the same position he was in last year, head-to-head with the Japanese runner. This year it's Noguchi. It's not Kawauchi, who has slipped off the back there. Either way, this is going to be a massive PB for Takuya Noguchi. His wife, Risa Takenaka, the 2015 champion, was predicting before the race to Brett Lana from Japan Running News that he was in great shape, that Noguchi had a PB in him. This will be a massive PB. It's going to be sub 210, potentially sub 29, given the strength and the pace of the racing between these two guys. Mungara, surely he's got to learn from last year. He probably will not know what Noguchi's finishing power is like. I wouldn't think he would want to be leaving it. He's got to try and break Noguchi open in the next kilometre, surely, rather than leave it till a sprint finish.
Yeah, and I felt like he was trying to break him a few kilometres ago, and that's a frustrating thing when he's still there. So Noguchi is just not going away, and that could be really frustrating, Mungara. But who knows?
The Kenyans, of course, renowned for their surges. So I guess the challenge and the decision for Mungara very shortly is, does he just try and throw in a little surge? It might only be a 200 metre, 400 metre surge where he ups the tempo from whatever we're at, 3:05 pace to even 10 seconds quicker. Could be enough to break Noguchi over, but the Japanese runners renowned as having incredible mental strength. We've seen that at Yuki for many, many years, and Noguchi, we don't seem to doubt, is any less resilient and no less lacking in mental strength. Wow, what a great race.
They're on the water there now, and the crowd building, as you can see there. They're heading towards us, and again, you can feel that buzz in the air. And Noguchi just throwing the arms down, have a little bit of a stretch there and get ready for what's going to be the kick of his life he's going to need here to get over Kenneth Mungara. But I'll tell you what, he's looking good. The overall time prediction probably slipping a little bit in 2:09-ish kind of pace. So they've slipped back to probably average 3:04. But, if they can come home strong here, there will be a little bit of a subtlety they're pushing into. We noticed it on the 10K yesterday, and that's about, you get quite exposed to it there where it's coming across the water. So they will be pushing into a bit of a breeze there. But, look, they're side by side, neck and neck. We're inside, the next 10 minutes or so, we're going to see who's going to take this win in 2017 Gold Coast Airport Marathon.
And Yuki Kawauchi on track, we would think, for another sub-2:10 run. And, of course, if he runs sub-2:12, as we were saying earlier, that would be a world record for the most sub-2:12 runners. An extraordinary run by Yuki Kawauchi. Noguchi and Mungara, we're down with about two kilometres to go.
That's right, 40 there, so 2.2 to go, Ian. They're on about 2:09.20 pace at the moment. And Noguchi just looking down at his watch there, so they'll come around, they'll come over the bridge, and then they're up this last bit of a straight, and then they'll head into Broadwater here.
And just quickly, Robbo, we know that Bekele has just gone through in the women's race through 35K in 2 hours and 33 seconds, which is giving her an estimated finish time of 2:25.21, which is well under course record pace. So we're eagerly watching that women's race. No other women have gone through 35K yet, but we'll keep you updated.
The fact that she's out on her own, it is a race for her to win or lose, but we would imagine when we saw her running through 32 kilometres, she looked so strong, no sign of any fading by her. No sign of any fading between Noguchi and Mungara. This is deja vu. This is history repeating itself at the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. We're in the closing stages again. We have a head-to-head, neck and neck, side-by-side, stride-by-stride battle between a Japanese and a Kenyan runner. We are privileged to be watching such amazing strength running, and to see these guys coming through the final drink station, that is literally Mungara grabbing a drink, throwing it away. That's maybe not what he was looking for. He might have been looking for electrolyte rather than water. Replenishing, just dabbing his face with water, and this is the final push for home. This is Kenneth Mungara. Are we seeing history in the making? Kenneth Mungara chasing a historic three-peat. No male runner has ever won Gold Coast Marathon 3 times in a row. It was done back in the 80s by Margaret Redden, the Australian, the only person to have won 3 consecutive races. Kenneth Mungara, Takuya Noguchi, a race in 2.
Yuki Kawauchi, interesting through that 40K mark there. Only 5 seconds off as we look at the split. So, the speed they're travelling, it's a good distance, and maybe it's too much of a distance for him to feature in the win here today. But Noguchi, I'm not sure how to read him. He looked like he was starting to struggle a little bit there, but he's just tucking in, and certainly Mungara, if he wants to strike and just test Noguchi out here, he's in the right position to do that. But I'm not convinced Kenneth Mungara's completely, relaxed at the moment now. He's really working hard, and they've drawn it back down to probably 2:09-ish pace now. So they're winding it up now, and they'll be heading down the straight here. They're heading towards us at the finish. It's going to be super exciting.
It's a long drive. It's about an 1,800 metre drive for home from here. We've just gone through 2:05. We are on pace for another sub-2:10. The sub-2:10 has become the absolute norm these days here, hasn't it, Benita, for the Gold Coast Marathon? We get disappointed when we don't have a race record, but anything sub-2:10 shouldn't be taken for granted as a world-class time.
Oh, it's a world-class time, and certainly, yeah, a lot of Australian male runners haven't run a sub 210 for years. But just quickly, we're seeing the women going through 35k. We see Virginia Maloney in 5th. She's really moving up. She's only a few seconds off Toronto, who went through 35k in 2 hours and 3. Virginia 2 hours and 3 and 11 seconds. And then we've got Kip Reyes, who went through in 3rd. Risa Takenaka in 2nd, and Bekele has got 2-minute lead. So, yeah.
That's a fascinating move, isn't it? Takenaka back into the top 3. Husband and wife Japanese podium finish.
Maybe they'll have to settle for second. You just don't know, but yeah, she's got enough to reach Bekele.
Yeah, she's...
No, we've got a good 2-minute gap there, don't we, between Bekele, the Ethiopian, and the women's race. We will swing back to the women to show the closing stages of the women's race as soon as we can. But at the moment, we are absolutely fixated and fascinated on the men's race, the closing stages. Less than 3 minutes to run in the 2017 Gold Coast Airport Marathon. You are looking at the winner of the Gold Coast Airport Marathon. Just which of these two gentlemen is the winner? Benita and Robbo, it is anyone's guess. I mean,
a potential move on the outside here. Noguchi, he's had enough of sitting.
Noguchi looking more relaxed, certainly, than Kawauchi did at the stage last year.
Yes.
Mungara never gives anything away. His face looks like a Buddha statue. He looks relaxed. He looks composed.
They'll swing in and take this hard left-hand turn. They'll come under the arch. The arch says 250 metres to go. It takes forever to get to this point. But
probably still got 500 metres running to go. I reckon we're about 2 minutes out from the finish there. Mungara, at this stage, I guess he's going to have to back his finishing kick as he did last year. Although Noguchi pushing the pedal to the metal. He is testing Kenneth Mungara. Seeing what Mungara has left. This is like a single lap of an Olympic track.
Mungara responds. And
here we go. This is fantastic.
Hold on to your headbands, folks. This is a ding-dong battle here. The last couple of minutes.
Has he broken Noguchi? Noguchi just wobbling his head just enough to make you wonder whether that was his last surge, that was his last shot in the locker. Mungara 2 strides ahead. He would be my pick at this stage.
I think so. I think
he just looks as if he's... And here we go into the turn. This is history repeating itself exactly as he won last year, using the turn, bouncing off that.
3 years in
there we go. 250 to go. Mungara with 5 metres now. Noguchi, he might have to settle for second, but this won't be over until the finish.
He's coming again. Takuya Noguchi, Kenneth Mungara. It's into the final turn. We are down to a kick finish. Noguchi, Takuya Noguchi, has he got enough to get past Kenneth Mungara? We wrote him off less than a minute ago. Mungara is not done. Noguchi has the lead. A metre lead. This is the most closest fantastic race. It is a Japanese win. A Japanese win. Takuya Noguchi, absolutely extraordinary.
Let's look at the time.
He should tick under 2.9 or around 2.9. Kenneth Mungara in second raises his hands. A Japanese victory. Takuya Noguchi.
There it is. 2:09.
Slipped under 2:09. Kenneth Mungara, valiant, slightly disappointing defeat. 2 warriors, 2 absolute road warriors. That is an extraordinary win. His wife picked it. Takenaka, Risa Takenaka, who was still out on the road. And
Yuki 2:09.20 coming across there for 3rd overall. This will be 4th place we're seeing in the shoot here now.
Yuki Kawauchi, another podium
10. Add that to your collection. And world record holder for most sub 2:12 marathons with 23 for Yuki. But what about this, Noguchi?
Wow. The Japanese have had such a long and proud history here. They have won so many races over the years. In terms of Japanese victories, this is their 10th win in the men, second only to Australian runners who dominated the early days in the 2000s. Steve Monaghetti there shaking hands with Noguchi. And here we're seeing another Japanese runner. I think it's this Hashimoto coming through to finish 5th. The Japanese, they're back. They are back at the Gold Coast.
We have a course record.
Yeah, what about that?
Rio Hashimoto. He collapses across the finish line, top 5 finish. He has run himself to the point of exhaustion. Japan 1 and 3, Kenya 2nd.
Wow, hope you enjoyed that, folks. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's just one of those races you get goosebumps from watching, and Noguchi just looked like he was coming in and coming out that whole last 500 metres, and wow, what a finish.
He had one dig, as we saw before that final turn. Mungara managed to hold him. We just saw a little bit of a head wobble from Noguchi, which I thought meant he was gone, but he just summoned something deep from within. The Japanese pride, the Japanese warrior within him has certainly come to the fore today. So we have Takuya Noguchi, a massive PB, over 2 minutes better than his previous best time, run at Tokyo earlier this year. So that'll certainly bump him from a silver class IAAF label status up to a gold class. He's writing a new chapter in his record books. And Takeda, the 6th runner home from Japan. So Japan, top 3 of the top 6. We hope to go to the finish line, Steve Monaghetti, with Brett Lana doing the translating for our winner over there, Takuya Noguchi. So, Mona, over to you. Hopefully we've got some words from the winner.
I'm down here with Noguchi. Unbelievable running. And Brett, just to translate for us, how did he feel? It looked like Kenneth was away, and yet he just lifted for that one extra kick to get home.
本当に素晴らしいレースだった。ムンガラ選手が何回もスパートかけて、だけど何回も戻ってきた。それはどういう気持ちだった？
My target to win only and enjoy my running. It was so happy. Today is my birthday. Yeah. Really?
Wow. Today, how old are you today?
29.
29. Wow, what a way to spend your birthday. Fantastic. You've done what Yuki couldn't do last year. Massive PB. Your personal best was 2 hours 11 before today. 2-minute PB. Wow, how do you do this?
去年川内さんできなかったことができて、そして自己ベスト2分以上更新した。それはどうやってそういう急にレベルアップした？
継続した練習を常に、コツコツやって、あと今年結婚してその妻のサポートがあって、よりこう競技に、集中できるようになって、多分競技力が上がったなと思います。
My training has been very good this year, but more than that, I got married in April, and the support of my wife, Risa Takenaka, who's out there running right now, really gave me the strength to get here today.
And Risa won in 2015, so did you feel you had to do the right thing for your family and have your win today?
竹中さんが2015年に優勝した、それもモチベーションになったでしょうか。
Yes, はい。Yes. 私も負けられないので優勝できてます。
We couldn't have just one Gold Coast Airport Marathon winner in the family.
Well, it's